wait, he's alive. He's alive. Yeah, wait, look.
The king.
Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Yahweh.
It is Draw Nigh to the Creator series here at Take on the World TV. It has been 7 weeks, I think. I think it was June 25th, I think. And I only know that because I was looking at YouTube trying to figure out how to get back on here. You guys, it's been so long, the StreamYard didn't recognize me. And guess who made it so that I could actually do tonight's show? I'll give you one hint.
Hey guys, shalom. Hey brother.
Yeah, man.
This is nice. I have not got to see you and be with you for a little bit.
I know it's been a minute. You're the reason why I'm even doing tonight's show. I've been meaning to do a show for I don't know a month.
Yeah.
And like I told you the other day, I've been in a funk. You know.
Yeah.
I think I actually said that the last couple of videos. I think I told the listeners because I tend to, I open up a lot more than I thought I would doing Take on the World. Back when I was doing Disputed Lands, I didn't open up as much. And when I was doing my Facebook ministries and stuff, it was all ministry.
Yeah.
So I didn't really talk about me, my family, stuff that's going on. But doing this series, Drawn Out of the Creator, the Spirit has definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone a lot. Since doing this show, opening up and being vulnerable a little bit. And so I think the people who listen in often, you know, they're aware that if I skip a week, it's harder for me to come back the second week. And when I skip 2 weeks, it becomes a real struggle for the third week. And usually I come in for the third week. Well, I had family visiting for a couple weeks.
Right.
Now, that individual wouldn't have had an issue with me doing the video. They would have gladly went upstairs and hung out with my wife and stuff. But I felt like that was weird, and it gave me an out, Jeff. It gave me an excuse. You know what I mean? And I was like, I'm not going to do it. And I really wasn't feeling it the first week, but then the second week, I was like, I'm already getting topics for week number 2, and I never went over week number 1's topics.
Right.
You know, and you don't want to do a word out of season, but like when you have a week of topics that you want to discuss, it's on the back burner. Well, now I've got 7 of them. I've got 7 weeks, and I don't even remember all this stuff, but you're the one who, you know, I had a couple listeners show some concern. They messaged me on Facebook, and that was real nice. And they said they were praying for me, and they said, hey, is everything okay? It's been a little bit. And, you know, I was like, okay, you know, it was a tugging of the Spirit. It was needed. You know, there was a few people that showed some concern. And, but yeah, you were definitely the one. I was like, dude, are we going to do videos or what?
You know,
you're like, we've been talking about this for how long?
Yeah.
So I called you yesterday and I said, you know, this isn't really the Fringe-tastic Friday that we discussed, but I mean, we can go over some of that stuff. So for the listener's sake, I called Jeff yesterday because he's been asking me every time we talk now. He's like, are we going to do a show or what? And I'm like, well, when can you? And he's like, well, I'm moving. I said, okay, well, let me know when you're done moving.
Right.
And then he gets done moving. He's like, hey, are we going to do a show or what? And I was like, you know, well, we've got some busy schedules. We'll figure things out. And he has his series. And then I got into my funk. And I didn't cut everybody off in distance, but I kind of did a little bit, Jeff, to be honest. You know?
Hey, you know, we've been having some setbacks as well. We're like last Sunday, we had the blood covenant, man. We were ready to roll. Yeah. And I had an emergency at work literally happen hours before we went on. So tomorrow night at 8 p.m. we're gonna do that live show on the blood covenant. And we've got some things lined up. We're ready to roll, but us too. We've been having things pop up, and you know, you just have to flow with the Spirit of God and roll with the punches. I think the people really enjoy when you are vulnerable. I mean, Paul writes about in his epistles. He was like, "Dude, this was so bad, I wanted to die," and he's telling the church that. You know, he's telling the people that go to him to listen to him. He's saying, look, this has got me so bummed. I just wish I could die. but nevertheless, God, help me persevere and go through. People like that because, too many times ministers and teachers and things, they try to present themselves on air that, everything is fine and holy, everything is good, but we all go through things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's more to it than just that. It's not just about, I mean, you do have your pastors and preachers who want to come off as this being a man of God means you're not human.
God.
Right? Yeah. Metal gold. Yeah, for sure. But, at the same token, Jeff, to be fair, and I think, I don't know how many of the listeners are going to be able to fully relate to this, but I think you're going to know where I'm coming from on this.
Yeah.
There's that aspect of being a leader and how
Sure.
much do you, and it's not so much of not wanting to give yourself away, but like what's
Right.
more important, because, I've seen preachers go the other swing of the pendulum, Jeff, where they're so wanting to be vulnerable that they're spending all the time focusing on their issues,
Right.
when they're supposed to be preaching. And then instead of turning those issues into ministry opportunities and explaining how Yah is carrying them through that and seeing things like that in the spiritual aspect of that walk, it becomes this whole show of flesh of, woe is me or whatever,
Right.
So you don't want to distract, you don't want to give details. There's a lot of scripture, and people don't talk about this. I thought about doing a video on this years back. There's a lot of scripture about discretion. A lot of people don't realize this, and Vicky Joy and I actually had a video we were going to call it Righteous Opaqueness. And it was going to be a real,
Nice.
a very controversial topic. And we were excited about it. This is back when we were planning David and Goliath, and look how long it took us to do that. I mean, it's been years until we finally did it. But righteous opaqueness, and it's this whole looking at, because especially even in churchianity, especially in the secular world, okay, in the unbeliever world, their view of what Christians are supposed to be and why they get angry when Christians aren't like Ned Flanders. They say, well, you're supposed to be about truth, therefore you should be constantly divulging everything. You should be see-through. And in churchianity, that understanding, that's not even something that's typically preached, but it's understood. It's like an unspoken, well, if you're keeping anything from being visible to all, then you're hiding, you're lying, you're being deceitful, you're hiding in the darkness. Tell me I'm wrong, Jeff. This is something we see, and I grew up in churchianity. This is understood.
But that is the mentality. But Yeshua, he knew that Judas was a traitor from the beginning.
Yeah, from the get-go.
Yeah, sure. He knew he was stealing from the treasury. He knew he was doing these things. He still gave him his authority. Yeah. He still sent him out.
Yeah. He was still called an apostle, Jeff. Nobody talks about that. Being an apostle means you actually have gifts. That means Judas was actually active in gifts during the ministry.
He was, and he wasn't.
People hate it when I say that.
Well, and Yeshua wasn't going around to James and John and Peter like, hey, that Judas guy, man, check it out. Look what he's doing. Can you believe he's doing that?
You see them self-reflecting. They had no self-reflecting when they ask when Yeshua brings it up at the supper. You see them all saying, "Is it me?" Except for Judas,
because none of them had a clue.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, there's all kinds of examples. You have one of the ones that people like to bring up is the lying spirit. Was it in Kings or something? Yah asks, he says, "Who will go out and deceive?" Yeah. And a lying spirit comes forward, and they say, "Oh, that's interesting." But I mean, there's all kinds of examples, Jeff. There's all kinds of examples. I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail right now, but I know I've got pages in one of my 20 notebooks that is dedicated to all the verses that from an atheistic secular view would say, well, this is contradictive in nature. But in reality, it's just understanding that discretion, there is wisdom in discretion when it is godly discretion, But anyways, all of that to say, that's not even related to why I just don't like being vulnerable. So I find it super funny that doing this show, Yah has pushed me to open up a little bit. And I'm not giving away real personal details. And there's still some cards that I've held to my chest for years that sooner or later I'm probably going to have to bring forward. And they're not nasty or scary. It's just things I don't want to get into. I really don't,
Yeah.
But yeah, so honestly, the last 7 weeks, Jeff, like tonight, I have a headache. I woke up this morning with a headache. I grind my teeth a lot and I clench my jaw a lot. It's like super uncontrollable. But when I'm sleeping, there's not really anything. I used to have retainers growing up as a kid, and I broke them from chomping on them.
Nice, wow.
And they would only last about a week or so, and they're like $300 a piece back then. So I only went through a couple of them before my parents were like, we're not going to keep buying these if you're just, chomping on them.
Right.
So I think that's part of the reason, on top of the fact that my normal intake for fluids is coffee. If I'm going to be real transparent here, Jeff, coffee is my, I go to work, I drink coffee all throughout the day. It's a long shift and I get tired, and sometimes I'll bring tea with me, but it's usually just coffee. And I'm home on the weekends, I'm drinking coffee, and that's probably part of it.
Yeah. Well,
but I just wanted to confess to the listeners, especially those who tune in often, the past 7 weeks, I've had headaches on and off for some of the weekends, or stomach aches or whatever, but that wasn't why. And it wasn't even like Yah was telling me not to do videos. It was literally, Jeff, I didn't feel like it. After the 2 weeks, the third week, I was kind of feeling off, and I was like, no, I'll take another week off. And then the fourth week, I felt fine. And I had the spirits telling me, you have no physical ailments today. What's going on? And I was like, honestly, what's the point? There's no good in this. Who's receiving from this? I mean, like, you use anybody, whatever.
We get to feeling like, wow, is there anybody even really listening?
Right. Well, people listen, but the question isn't if people are listening. It's whether or not Yah is using you to help them. Because there's all kinds of preachers people are listening to that, But, I mean, at the end of the day, Yah does what he wants. Whether or not you're aligned with him, it doesn't even matter. He'll use the person as he sees fit to reach the people as he sees fit. And either you want to be part of the team or you're sitting out. And I was purposely sitting out. Yeah. I'm taking accountability here, Jeff. But
I am glad that you're back in, brother. I am. I tell you what, I've been missing you. We've been talking a lot, kind of on the sidelines here and there, and talking about things. And I have missed you. I really have. And I know what it's like to be off and not teach for a while. You still get things. You get things to talk about. But I like the title. What in the world? Yeah.
What in the world, Jeff? I mean, you've got onion layers here. I mean, you could take this as a question mark. You can take a question mark with an exclamation point.
Statement.
You can just put exclamation points. I mean, this is, and I was telling my wife, she was like, do you want me to put a question mark in the image? And she showed me what it would look like without it. And I was like, honestly, no, because it's when you put the question mark on there, now it's just a question. Right. Now the listener expects something strange and wacky. We have a specific topic. This is, that end. This is that plus, what in the world, Jeff, is going on? So the past 7 weeks, I mean, and I've been telling you some of the stuff. I've messaged you some of the stuff like, well, this is what I was going to do this week. And then I just don't do it. Yeah. But you have a little bit of an idea. And a lot of the things that have been on my radar. Dude, what is going on in the world right now? I mean, what do you want to talk about right now? Because, I mean, I've been seeing patterns in the body that are interesting, that are worth mentioning. I've been seeing things in world news. I've been seeing things in world news that aren't being discussed. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
I know one thing that's really been kind of hitting with me is all this stuff that's just been hinted at in New York. We've had a crazy PSA announcement for a nuclear drill. Mm-hmm. It just suddenly pops up out of nowhere, and it goes off something like, I don't have a clip of it, but it's something like, we don't know how it happened, but let's just say you wake up in nuclear, we've had a nuclear attack, and this is how you deal with it. And I want to get into that, what they said. But
yeah, because it reminds me of the old atom bomb.
I did some research. Yeah, I did some research on it, and New York has not put out a PSA on a nuclear attack since 1962. 1962, and then all of a sudden, bam! Stop, drop, and roll type thing. And here's what they told the mass. They didn't tell them to stock up on food. They didn't tell them to get iodine pills. They didn't tell them to do anything. They said, go home and turn on your TV, and your government will tell you what to do.
Listen further for instructions.
They said, go home, take a shower, get the radioactive, get the radio
many times. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I'm just picturing someone that rhymes with lousy coming on next and telling us, we have to go get a certain jab to make sure that'll take care of the radiation. It'll cure it'll cure the common cold and also take out radiation poisoning too. But I mean, it's just, they didn't tell them to do anything but just sit back and rely on the government. Basically,
Right.
you live in a big, massive city. There's no crops planted. There's none of this stuff. They're not telling them to store up food or water. You know, you can only go 3 days without water. Not telling you to store up any of that. Go in, take a shower, and sit back and listen for the government. Well, listen, if there was a nuclear attack, right? Let's say somehow they survived and they're not just vaporized, right? I mean, let's just be real. You know, they're not using a little small nuclear thing on New York. They're using a big daddy. But let's say that they use a small one. They survived the initial attack. They survive the radioactive fallout. They're going to go in, and instead of having all these things prepared, they're going to sit down and they're going to, okay, well, I've got to turn on my computer. I've got to turn on the TV. I've got to turn on the radio so I can listen to what the government has to tell me to do so I can be saved. Well, Ian, you're a military man. What happens when that nuclear bomb goes off? It's like also an EMP. It's fried all the electronics. They're not going to be able to listen to anybody. You know, so we're just seeing some really odd stuff. And then we have all these drills that have been going on.
No. Yeah. I want to get into that too.
No, go ahead.
Okay, but hold on. No, before you fast forward, because New York is one of those things. Like Turkey's on my radar, China and Russia. They've been on the radar for 8-9 years for me.
I can't wait to talk about Turkey because that blew me away.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff about Turkey. Every time I look, I find stuff, and it's I've been warning about Turkey for years, on and off. Every once in a while, it's one of those topics. It's like the drying up of the Euphrates River. I bring it up a few times a year, and people who've watched me for years, they catch on to it, and if not, then you might not see it. But okay, so here's the thing about the New York thing, because I watched the PSA, right? Yeah. And honestly, like 7-8 years ago, I would have watched it and taken notes, and then I would have posted it, been like, "Are you guys seeing this?" And now I don't know, man. It's almost like I'm jaded to the point where it's like, yeah, I've seen so much, it's whatever, you know. So I watched it, and all I kept thinking was, you know, I got disgusted and I was laughing because they said, first thing we want you to do is go inside your house. And I'm sitting there going, well, there's 2020 all over again. That's right there. I paused it and I thought to myself, I don't need the rest, because the rest of it, all it is they're trying to push again another reason. Stay in your home, go behind closed doors where we can access you, where you're staying put, you're not on the run. It's a lot easier to catch prey that is sitting still. It's a lot easier to control somebody who's going to go sit and listen for instructions from the airwaves, right? Things like that. But they said, don't go to your car and don't stay in your car. And I said, of course not. Right? Because your house is better than your car. For what reason in terms of survivability? Do you see what I'm saying? So like right away, I was like, it's
a better tomb, brother. It's a bread.
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting there thinking like, yeah, you can't have a mobile. That'd be terrible. But you know, so I watched the rest of the PSA. I did. And for the rest of it, I just kept sitting there thinking, like, I was waiting for them to say, and get underneath your desk and hold your head between your knees. Right? Yeah. I was probably the last generation that was taught in the chat. Yeah, you know.
I remember that. I turned 50 on August 1st. I remember that. I remember we were still in elementary school when they were still doing some of these things. Ronald Reagan was in office, and we were still doing drills for nuclear fallout, you know, for a nuclear attack, and we were being programmed as kids that if a nuclear bomb dropped, that us getting under our desk
would do something.
Well, it's going to do something, right?
Yeah, hey. I remember in young grades doing that, and then the switch changed over from getting under your desk to tornado drills of going into the basement, because that was a more likely scenario. But I do remember it was like 2nd, 3rd grade, getting underneath the desk, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, is this supposed to help for if the ceiling collapses on us? Like, what's the point of this? You know, and you would think that you would want less on top of you, kind of thing, but it is what it is. But yeah, so New York. While we're on the topic of New York, they've got. I did a Facebook post on this, and I didn't say anything. Sometimes I do this. I just give a sentence and I leave it.
Yeah.
I've noticed people get less angry. They're more willing to participate in conversation. They're less offended. They're less likely to assume what I'm getting at if I just post one sentence. So that's what I do sometimes with these things. And so I put on there, NYC's locking up their meat with a question mark. But if you look into it, they're locking up a lot more than their meat. Okay. So if you look at their Walmarts and stuff like that, we're talking like, when you would go to Best Buy a few years back and they have like the real expensive Xbox, the real expensive, and it's behind a glass thing and it's locked and they're doing that, Jeff, with packs of meat.
Wow.
They're doing that with $15 items. I don't remember the list. My wife's not in the room at the moment, but she was rapping off the list to me of things that she has found locked up in NYC. And it's some weird stuff, Jeff. I mean, we're talking things like water bottles with the ink thing wrapped around it so you can't get it out of the store.
And these are things that have been confirmed. This is not internet conspiracy theories. These are not things that may or may not be happening. These are things that are confirmed, that we have proof of this stuff going on right now. And we could go a million different ways. I am super keen on the food shortage stuff that's going on right now. Ian, I know I'm the general manager of a hotel. Every Wednesday night we feed everybody. We cook for the staff and all the guests. We do that every Wednesday night. And this last Wednesday, Ian, I had the bright idea. I was going to do a baked potato bar. I'm like, okay, that'll be good, because the price of meat's been really been going up, and it's getting pretty expensive to feed everybody. And so I went to Sam's. Sam's pretty much usually has everything I need, but when I went to the potatoes, they just had the little small potatoes. And we've got big oil field crew guys coming to our hotel, big 12 sandwich eating guys. And I'm like, man, if I serve them a bunch of little small baked potatoes, they're gonna roast me. They're gonna, so I need big baking potatoes. So we got all the stuff for the baked potatoes, all the trimmings and sour cream and the cheese and chives and all this kind of stuff, chili to go in it. And I'm like, well, I'll just go to the little local Walmart or Kroger's and get the big baked potatoes, because that's what I usually buy if I'm gonna make potato salad and stuff. I don't like peeling tons of potatoes. I'll get the big ones, that way I have to peel less potatoes. And man, we went the next day to go get all that stuff. Nowhere. We went to 3 different cities. Between me and some other folks, we went to 3 different cities in this area. We went to Moundsville, we went to St. Clairsville, Ohio, we went to Wheeling, West Virginia. That's all like in a little 15-20-minute area of each other. Nothing. We're going into stores, and they had a few bags of little small potatoes. My wife and I went to Kroger's here in Moundsville yesterday before Shabbat. We were getting some groceries, and I just made the comment again. I said, my gosh, where are the potatoes? And Kroger's had probably 10 or 15 bags of little small potatoes, little yellow ones. And normally they're the really, really long place where they have all the potatoes just packed and stacked. And they had 15 or 20 bags scattered, and they just look barren. Man.
Okay. Before we go into the food shortage, because we can do that next if you want, I want to take it back to New York real quick, Jeff.
Yeah.
Because you even hinted at something, and then we left it be. Okay, so you had the PSA about the nuke attack. You have the wrapped up foods and stuff. My wife put in the chat here. Yeah. These are some of the things in NYC that they are putting lock mechanisms on there so you can't steal them at the stores. Chocolate and candy, Jeff. Chocolate
really?
Bar. Okay, over-the-counter meds, meat, body wash. You go to get your body wash or chocolate bar, the last thing you expect is one of those ink cartridges or a chain over it with a little electronic beeping thing.
Yeah.
It's getting weird, Jeff. It's getting weird. I mean, it's been getting weird, right? Honestly, the moment somebody's eyes opened, whether it was 50 years ago or yesterday, you're going to be saying, wow, things are getting weird, because it's not that they're getting weird. I mean, they are. They're progressively getting weirder.
Yeah.
Right? The contractions are getting closer together. Right. The severity of the contractions are getting worse. The frequency and the time within is getting shorter. Right. So, yeah, things are getting weirder. But overall, once your eyes are open, things are weird. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got the PSA, you got the locking up of the meats and things in New York. Oddly enough, you can go back to past presidents. You remember Obama, he kept saying, he kept expressing concern about New York. You remember that?
Yeah.
When he would do those speeches and they'd say, oh, what is your concern about this, that, and the other? And they were worried about things like border control and stuff like that. And he just kept saying, I'm worried about New York. I'm worried about New York. To the point where everybody was like, why New York? What are you guys hearing? What is this?
Yeah.
And of course, Obama and New York makes me think of the whole where they signed the memorial for that One World Trade Center. They put the vav on there. They put the 666 on there, and the we this or something, whatever. I can't remember what it was, but okay. So New York.
They were also kind of mimicking the 5 I wills.
They had they also had on top of the PSA, and this was before the PSA, and not many people are talking about this, but they did have you know how they have those alert emergency alarms outside,
right?
You know what I'm talking about, where they have a voiceover box. They had that thing shooting out, right? The horns. They had that thing shooting out, talking about get out a bug out bag. I saw multiple videos of people going, "What is this?"
Yeah.
Get a bug out bag. And they were telling people in New York, you need to be able to have everything you need and be able to get out of your place. I think they gave them like an 8-hour window, but they said, we might not even be able to give you that much time. You need everything that you need to survive, so that if you're told to evacuate, you can evacuate in time and you're not scrambling for goods. And so, of course, people in New York, these are city folk, right? So a lot of them are sitting there going, what I need to survive? Like, I need my cashmere and my Lexus to survive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's all kinds of
my Twitter. I need my Twitter. I need
weird things going on. Okay, now insider information, right?
Yeah.
Now this is one that's really not getting out. Okay, because the PSA, a lot of people have seen that on TikTok, and the bug out bag that's going around TikTok a little bit, right?
Yep.
And the wrapping up of the foods and stuff like that, that's Facebook and TikTok and maybe a couple other places, probably on YouTube, all over the place. But I don't see too many talking about the military training in New York that's going on right now. Now, for me personally, a lot of bells and flags were rising on this because I'm very familiar with the type of training exercises that they would normally be doing. Right, for NTC, and it is not what they're doing, Jeff. Okay, so we have staff sergeants, sergeant first classes, and master sergeants.
You said, what was the initials that you said there?
I'm about to go over it.
Okay, because some of us are not military trained, brother.
I'm about to go over it. Okay, so for the U.S. Army, we have staff sergeants, sergeant first class, and master sergeants. Okay, for anybody who's familiar with military stuff, but maybe not Army ranking, that's an E6, E7, and an E8 without the diamond, meaning that master sergeant is the same rank as a first sergeant. They just don't have the authority of a first sergeant. Okay, what I'm really getting at is E6. You've been in the Army probably for at least 8 to 12 years, possibly longer. E7, you've probably been in for 12, 14, 15 plus years.
Right.
E8, you're probably close to 20. Okay, so these are guys who have dedicated their life. E6 to E8, you've probably got more than a decade under your belt. NTC, you've done it multiple times, right? Okay. Right. So these are not the guys to freak out about training. These are not the guys to ask questions. These are not the guys to call their families, Jeff, because that's what's going on right now. They're calling families and old Army friends that are in the military and those who have gotten out, like myself, calling saying, hey, I don't know what's going on, but something's weird in New York. Okay, so there's a couple NTC spots for the U.S. Army. Okay, I went to the one in California. I had to go
NTC. Twice, what is NTC?
NTC? Something training center, national training center, I think, something like that. If I'm getting that wrong, somebody's going to roll their eyes at me. NTC is what we called it, right? It was going into the field. You'd go for about 4 weeks, and typically you would go to an NTC right before an employment or deployment, right? So right before we'd go to Iraq, because I went to Iraq twice, you'd go to NTC for a month, and then once you go overseas, you'd go to Kuwait before you go to Iraq for a month to acclimate to the weather. And again, you're doing NTC all over again, but overseas. Okay. So with NTC, you're working on all kinds of things. You're working on a lot of drills and things, a lot of rollover drills, entering properties, how to IAD recognition, identification, things like that, how to handle those things, the proper protective equipment, the PPEs, how to wear them, how not to wear them, what's important with all of them. And once you've done it for a while, you can roll your eyes at a half of it when you go to these things. And, I used to get real annoyed because I remember one time I had a rollover drill, and the guy came over and yelled at me and told me I did it wrong. And he was what we call the fuzz patch, which means, okay, so in the U.S. Army, on the left arm, you have a patch representing the unit that you are currently in. On the right arm, you wear a patch that you've been deployed with, combat, right? Either the unit you were deployed with, or if you got the proper paperwork, a unit that you worked with overseas in a deployment, okay? If you've never been deployed, you're a fuzz patch. You can't wear a patch there. Now, just because you can doesn't mean you did, right? There was times I didn't wear one on my right arm, and it was this whole rebellious, I don't want to this, that, and the other. And then going back home, I used to slap on a first ID instead of the 2 first calves, because they want everybody wearing 2 first calves. They want that pride of first calf because I was first calf. Anyways, all of that to say, this guy was yelling at me with fuzz patch. I had no experience, Jeff, and he's teaching me how to do the rollover drill. Right. And I barked back about how what I did was actually what worked overseas and why his method would get somebody killed. But anyways, NTC, National Training Center. Okay, so I was right. NTC. So you're going over all those type of things, right? Well, in New York, currently, they got sent over there for a 2-week NTC type of training, okay, in the wild training. And they start calling their families after a couple of nights because they said, we're not doing anything but one thing. They are only doing one exercise over and over again. They are loading ammo into trucks in the middle of the dark using only NVGs, night vision goggles. And so they're calling their families saying, we're not training anything else. Yeah. And they refuse to let us use light. They refuse to let us do it during the day. And we're repeating the drills over and over again to work on the efficiency and the speed. Faster, better, get more ammo in there. Faster, better.
And
ammo
again,
into trucks.
All they're doing, ammo into trucks without
in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night.
Okay. So now your mind might already be swimming with things. Now, on top of that, the people that have been calling in said that they were originally told that they were going to be there for 2 weeks training. Yeah. A week into it or so, they were told, we don't know when you're going back. Sit still. So those people are calling thinking there's something going to happen in New York. Right. That's the assumption here. And I can see why they're connecting those dots, because they're being told, we don't know when we're sending you back. So that's all the information I have on that. I only have so many dots I can connect, and anything I'm going to connect to that is going to be assumptuous on my part. I can use some of my military background. I can look at the way things are going in the world. I can make some guesses, but those are the cold hard facts. They're loading ammo into trucks in the middle of the night. Their E6s, E7s, and E8s don't know why, and they're being told that they don't know when they're going to go back to their base.
And there's and the scuttlebutt around all this is these guys, especially the E7s and E8s, they should be to a place where they're also getting a little bit more intel. Hey, this is what's going on, but they're not getting anything.
Oh,
yeah, little bit.
I don't know what they're getting. And E7s and E8s, they get information. They got more information than I did when I was in. I wasn't that high up, but a lot of it, it's hard to. I've been out for a while. I got out 12 years ago. Right. It was 12 years in April. So there could be a lot of things that have changed in the military since that time that I would be unaware of. Protocol could be different. How things are handled could be different. I don't know. I haven't been in. I've got some friends that are in that I could ask. But
speaking of something like that, the last 2 administrations ago, they were just chopping the heads off of all of the generals and the admirals.
I remember that. Sure.
Not just admirals, rear admirals. The 4-star, the 3-star generals. They're just you gone. Get them out of here.
I know it.
And then we lost a lot of our guys because they didn't want to take the thing.
Sure.
We lost a lot of our special forces guys, the leaders, the people that have been trained, the guys that would have the patch on this side.
Oh yeah,
they're gone. Right.
Well, special forces, especially when you see. There was I think it was a Navy SEAL team as well. They all put in they did a lawsuit, right? Wasn't it the SEALs that did that? There was a Navy SEAL team. They filed a lawsuit because they all refused. Okay. And when you see special forces, Navy SEAL guys as a unit all saying, we're not going to do that. Yeah. That should raise a flag. That should raise some question marks for anybody who assumes that there's good in those things. These are the individuals who know not to trust the government, who work with the government and have seen enough to know.
They know.
You cannot trust certain things. They know. Yeah, you're right. We did.
So, okay. So let me ask you this. Would you feel comfortable? We've stated the facts that we know. Mm-hmm. Would you feel comfortable making any kind of assumptions, knowing that people are understanding these are assumptions and we don't have anything to back this up?
It's purely
speculation.
It's purely speculation. Okay, but here's the thing. I was a combat arms guy, and I don't ever remember training loading ammo. I was a low-ranking combat guy, and I don't ever remember training and loading ammo.
If you're a low-ranking person, that's kind of
you do the grunt work. You do the grunt work. You know,
but Jeff, they have everybody doing this right now. This is
I don't know what ranks say. I don't know if the E6s, E7s, and E8s are actually physically doing it or if they're just overseeing. I would expect from my experience that they'd be overseeing.
Right.
That they still would be disturbed by it because they're sitting there going, where's the rollover drills? And I don't know if there's other things going on. I'm just giving you the information of what I have received. And that's how it was presented, is that this is the only thing they're focusing on. It's in the middle of the night. NVGs only, which I hate those NVGs. It's extremely weird. So you're expecting something like, hypothetically, okay, either you're expecting something like Chinese and or Russian troops working colluded together with the DHS, like I posted about back in 2015, to round people up for FEMA camps to take away guns, working alongside the so-called IRS army situation.
Whoa! That you can't go past. Wait! Time out.
You're trying to stop at every little thing, and we're not going to go back to the other.
For those of you that don't know, the IRS, just like, oh gosh, what was it? 10 years ago, the U.S. Postal Service. About 10 years ago, the U.S. Postal Service spent $2 billion on ammo for the U.S. Postal Service. And then now, like this year, what's going on with the IRS? What are they doing?
87,000 new hires. And if you look at the application information and the contracts, it actually involves concealing and carrying, using force if necessary, being prepared to use force if necessary, and concealing and carrying, which is not what you think of when you think of an IRS agent. You don't think of them packing one and coming to the house with hot rounds ready to go, locked and loaded.
Yeah. Where's my $2? $2. There's a Better Off Dead reference there for you. John Cusack. Mm-hmm. There you go. I think a 1987 movie. There you go. $2.
Yeah, 87,000 on my Facebook. I grabbed one of those memes and threw it in the. Anybody who's a Facebook friend with me, if you haven't noticed yet, if you scroll through my thing, unless they shadow banned it, because sometimes Facebook does that. Jeff, it's weird. I'll post 5 things on my Facebook, and I'll go back to put something in the comments, and I won't see my own threads on my own wall. I know you guys hide some of my stuff from others, and you won't put them, but I can't find my own stuff. And so I've learned that if you go to grid view, you can find your own stuff a little bit easier. And if you search keywords, you'll find it. And, but back in the day, a couple of years ago, I started learning that if I would type in, hey, what happened to my thread, this and this and this, and then reloaded my page, all of a sudden it's there. But other ones would be missing, but that one's there now, you know? So it's just weird. But anyways, I've got the post on that where it shows you the application information. If you want to be hired as an IRS agent, you've got all the information there. It's got the contact info and what they're looking for, with certain parts underlined, circled, and highlighted, talking about carrying and concealing and things like that. On top of that, they bought a lot of ammo. Anyways, in those comments, one of the memes going around is a football stadium that holds 86,000 people at full capacity. Yeah. Explaining to the person who's looking at it, you know, we're talking more than what can fill this stadium. You know, 87,000, Jeff, of these stormtrooper, IRS agents.
Some people would say that's an army.
Yeah, it sounds like one, doesn't it? Elon Musk apparently, supposedly offered to buy it off.
Wow.
From the Clintons. I mean, you know, technically the IRS is privatized, aren't they considered international? They're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's all kinds of weird. What is going on in the world, Jeff? What in the world?
Yeah.
What in the world, Jeff? That's all I keep saying. What in the world, man?
Yeah.
Okay, what topic you want to go to here?
Oh man,
Sorry,
there's
I
so
didn't mean
many.
to cut you off.
There's so many right
I
there.
know
Let's talk about shadow banning just a little bit, and that may roll us into some stuff. When you guys are trying to research things out, there's you used to be able to use DuckDuckGo pretty easily. There's a couple different ones. There's Brave, different things like that. I think they're all related. I think they're all tied in.
Probably.
It is getting more difficult and more difficult. There was a topic I wanted to kind of touch on. We don't have to hit it tonight or right now even, but there was a Bigfoot attack in Mammoth Cave National Park. I think it was July 28th, and it made national news. It was all over the internet for just a couple days, and now, Ian, when I went back to try to find something, because I'm like, man, this is everywhere. This will be easy to be able to go in and find and talk about this tonight. I found one article, and it took me wording and rewording and trying to find it. Yeah, Jason T says right. DuckDuckGo has been compromised. That's right, absolutely. Hey, Shalom Samson, good to see you guys. But yeah, it's getting more and more difficult to look things up, and when you're trying to find out truth about things, it's hard. One of the big things I really wanted to talk about tonight was the food shortages.
Okay,
and then try to get the audience maybe a nice list going for them to stock up on stuff right now. I mean, tonight, like tomorrow. Tomorrow, go to the store and start trying to get some of these things. I think back at the end of June or mid-June, there was a really good list of 95 food processing plants, warehouses, and farms that have just gone up in smoke. Not to mention, over in the Ukraine, all of the wheat fields getting toasted. You know,
right. Hey, did you see that? Did you see that prophecy post I got on that though?
No.
Oh, okay. After the video, remind me, and I'll go tag you in it unless it got deleted, because my wife's been saying that lately. I mean, deleting of Facebook stuff, deleting of YouTube stuff. This is not new to us in our circles, you know. And every once in a while, you come across non-believers who aren't in the know on things, and you'll say, "Oh, well, you know, did a video on this, or this person had TikTok on that," but of course it got brought down, and they're like, "Why?" Like, because it's a born again believer, true Christian type of post. Of course, it's going to be deleted. And you say things like that. I've had coworkers, even family members, who call themselves Christians, and they say, "What? Christian stuff's not being taken down." And I'm like, "Where have you been?" Since 2014, I've been fighting the government on my posts and things like that. But especially the past few years, it's been nuts. You know, channels are getting dropped left and right. Anyways, so there was a girl who gets prophecies, Jeff, and I'm not big on people who self-identify as prophets and who do prophecies a lot. A lot of it, you know, it falls by the wayside and stuff like that. So I'll look at it here and there, but I'm not a big fan of it typically. But this girl here, she's had a lot of stuff, you know, real specific stuff, and they came to fruition in short amount of times. Right. And I think she's batting 1,000, Jeff. Not that it's her, right? If it's real, right? But she's got some information about that. She did a prophecy about those wheat fields in Ukraine and what God had told her as a word of what He was going to do in response to that. Yeah. And then she did the post that I put up that my wife found, because sure enough, there is spiritual warfare going on, Jeff, and it's getting physical. Right. You know what I mean? The chess match is getting real interesting. Okay, so food processing plants. For anybody, I think most of the listeners, if not all of them, are probably have already posted about it themselves. Right. So I don't know if we can really give them any information, but anybody who's possibly brand new and doesn't know, it's been just the past year and a half.
This is cows, man. Look at all these cows, just dead. Yeah, just dead. I got the sound down so we don't get anything going on, but all these cows. This is just nuts. I've got another one. Hang on. This is over in Ukraine. Massive wheat fields, just being torched, and the Ukraine is like one of our major sources for all this stuff, man. It's crazy. It's crazy, and that's not to mention. I saw some videos from a truck driver, friend of mine that's on Facebook. I won't post this stuff because I don't want to get him taken down or anything like that. But he was at a dump facility, and they had thousands of crates and the packages of baby formula.
Yeah,
destroying it.
There's people on TikTok and Craigslist saying that they are hiring or have been hired to go to stores, buy all the baby food and formula, and to go throw it away. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. It's
getting weird. And I was gonna leave this. My last video I did on here was in the middle of that 1 Samuel study. Yeah. And at that time, I was starting to get prepared to do a video that was going to discuss for a good minute about all the warehouses, the plants, all the food processing that's been dropped down, because it tied into where I think some of it's going. And we're not just talking famine and pestilence, but also I was going to leave this for the other video, and I'll probably still go over it with Dirt, because I'm really excited to do that video, because it's only one of like 10 amazing things I want to do in that video. But Jeff, is it on your radar at all about the cricket processing plant? Have you been paying attention to that at all?
I've heard a little bit about that, and then
because
I've heard about
worldwide we have we have food processing plants that are getting broken down. They're burning. They're accidentally on fire. And meanwhile, simultaneously, the processing plants that are actually gaining in power and money and wealth and building more and more are these cricket, locust, grasshopper, insect food plants, Jeff. And when I started looking into it, I started realizing there's this trend that I think the secular side of the world is a lot more aware of than a lot of the believers, because the believers would see it as a flag, whereas the secular world is just another trend. It's another wave, right?
Yeah. They're trying to get us. They're trying to get us off of what we consider meat. They're going to these insects. It's a lot cheaper to raise. Yeah. They're going to plant-based meat with human flesh taste. You heard that one?
Yeah, I posted about it.
Yeah.
And then you got to sit there and go, how do you know it tastes like flesh? And then if you really, I had somebody comment, tell me that, if you really deep dive into it, you'll find that they explain to you what flesh tastes like. And they've broken it down to a science, So even for somebody who hasn't done behind the closed doors, Illuminati, satanic ritual, cannibalism type of things, you can try to make your food that way if you really wanted to, for whatever reason. It is a weird time, man. So I started seeing this, and I went to jungle gyms. You ever been to a jungle gyms?
No.
You know what it is?
No.
Okay, so growing up near Chicago,
I know what a jungle gym is. When you grow up, you play on it.
Right. Now this is Gym JIM, a little different.
Okay, no, I've not heard of that.
Although to be fair, my children don't see too much of a difference, to be honest. Growing up near Chicago, it was Trader Joe's. Okay.
Right.
Trader Joe's got recently bought out, but it was that when they first came to, they had leather bracelets, dream catchers, and a lot of exotic wild meat beef jerkies, right? And there wasn't much else, and then after that, it started growing, whatever. Anyways, that's what jungle gyms reminds me of on a large scale. So here in Ohio, we've got 2 of them. Jungle gyms, they're huge, supermarket size of a mall, basically.
Right.
International foods, and I don't have the pamphlet on me. Oh, actually, you know what? Hold on one second. I see it right now.
Go ahead. Yeah, so here's a link for that world's largest cricket processing plant coming to London. Guys, get ready. If you're not a prepper, you need to be prepping. You need to even if you live in a small apartment, figure out how to plant some food. Figure out how to raise some things right there where you're at. If you have, if you live in town, find out if you're allowed to have any chickens. Find out if you're allowed to,
Ooh,
you've got a
hey,
backyard. Plant some stuff in your backyard. Learn now how to
Jeff,
do it. Yeah.
Speaking of, Jeff, when we first moved to where we're at right now, my wife and I currently, we're in a city that you even have to get a permit to do a garage sale, which we're
yeah, I've been there.
We've never even heard of that. It's not an HOA thing. It's just a city. And we thought that was insane. I've never heard of that before. I thought that was goofy. Okay. But anyways, come to find out, right? In our city limits, you can't have, they said no farm animals. They said no chickens, no goats, nothing like that. We don't have a big backyard. It would have been nice if we were allowed. We probably would have had a few chickens. It's not a lot, but a few is better than nothing. You have free breakfast a couple times a week, right?
Right.
Anyhow, now that my wife and I are looking to exit the area, we find out we could have got away with quail. So I want to throw that out there for the listener, that if you are saying, well, I have a house, I've got property, but I know chickens, I already know that's a no-go. If you're not using that as an excuse, if you actually would, but you're not allowed, look into the little letters and look the magnifying glass, get it out, go look at the small letter print, right? And see if you can't get away with quail. And here's the funny thing about quail is they're quiet. Okay. So it's easier to get away with it, quail over chicken. Now I'm not suggesting anybody go against the laws or anything like that. I'm just saying, if you were worried that your neighbors are going to complain or make a ruckus and all of a sudden there's all these zoning issues that are going to come up that normally wouldn't, quail, which also have eggs, right? Yeah. Quail is a possible swap out. So I just want to throw that out there. Okay, so Jungle Jim.
If you are concerned about your neighbors, don't get guineas. They are super loud and obnoxious. Yeah, guineas are super loud and obnoxious. They'll eat all the ticks in your yard, but they will drive your neighbors nuts. So yeah,
that's okay. That's what the opossums are there for, right? Eating all the ticks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see where you got all the food plants. Oh yeah, so we went to Jungle Jim's. Yeah. And I was looking to buy some locusts to send to my friend Jeremiah Dirt to do a John the Baptist video with, and I was going to send it to him and have him eat it on camera with me. He still doesn't know this. This is still my plan. Don't go telling him anybody, okay? Because I know that if he gets the box and he's on camera and I say open it up, okay, now you got to eat it. He'll do it. He'll give me a look and he'll make some comments, but he'll do it. I know he will. He'll try it at least, right? And so I figured this international market, this Trader Joe's on steroids supermarket, international, huge mall-sized place, they got to have them if anybody's going to have them, right?
Right.
Well, this was like the third or fourth time we had gone, and I remember seeing little packets. Jeff, they have an aisle dedicated to it now.
What?
And they've conked out. They've kicked out some of this. They've conked out some of the produce, the Asiatic produce and seafood, and replaced it with tarantulas, scorpions, various insects like grasshoppers, crickets, things like that. And so, of course, you've got them salted, you've got them plain, you've got them with hot sauce, you've got them with barbecue flavoring, teriyaki, whatever. And the price
I've had chocolate-covered crickets, brother.
Have you?
Yeah.
Was it crunchy?
Just crunchy chocolate? Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah. I got regular ones, and then I was gonna tell Dirt he's got to dip him in honey.
Oh, there you go.
The whole locust and honey, and then after that, I was gonna explain the whole argument about whether or not it was actual locusts or the top of the. I'm not gonna tell Dirt that until after he's eaten one or two of them, because I don't think he's aware of that argument. So I already see his jaw dropping, being like, "What?"
That's nice.
But yeah, so I've been noticing this trend in wave. The food's going down. And Jeff, honestly, when people tell me I'm starting to not see things in the store, I've been seeing this for 2 years.
Let me ask you,
spring of 2020.
Let me bring some scripture into this. What do you think? Do you think this ties in with Isaiah 66?
Isaiah 66.
Where it talks about
my attention before.
Where it talks about Yeshua coming back when he comes back. He destroys those that are eating the mouse and the pig, and it looks like it's like a hybridized food source, in my opinion. Do you think that's what they're going to? And when they were really hot and heavy with the thing, they were also talking about they could grow the thing in lettuce in our foods. And so are they just looking at trying to get us all off of normal, regular food, right? Corrupting the image, everything that God has made. And you know what? We know better. We're going to improve upon it to the point we're going to say, God, you're stupid. We know how to do stuff, and we're going to put things in this to control you, to change you, and all this kind of stuff. What do you think there? Isaiah 66. You want me to bring it up on the screen? I can find it.
Verse 17, they that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one's tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith Jehovah.
Yeah.
That's in 66 there. That was just the verse when I opened it up. That was the first verse I saw, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, because it's not just showing eating unclean. It's in combination with other things as well. Yeah, man, things are getting weird, and since spring of 2020, Jeff, and this is why I get a little tripped out when people say, well, I'm starting to have trouble. No, locusts are clean, April. Locusts, grasshoppers, and some people argue about whether or not crickets, right? If you go into so-called Torah observant chat rooms, and I say so-called not because they're not, but in those chat rooms, a lot of times they don't seem very genuine, in my opinion. And I'm not trying to blanket statement. Okay, I'm just saying overall, generally speaking, you get a lot of actual legalistic types in there, but there's typically arguments about whether or not crickets and grasshoppers, which one, or the other, whatever. And my wife and we've done the study, and we've come to see them being of the same family, locusts, crickets, and grasshoppers. But if you go look up the list of clean foods, depending on what Bible version you have, it's going to tell you locusts and grasshoppers. And certain Bible versions, I think like the ESV and a couple other ones, I think they actually say cricket as well, whereas like the King James does not. Yeah, John the Baptist locust eating, sure, but that's a whole nother topic, like I mentioned earlier, and I plan to go over that with Dirt about the two different views on whether or not John the Baptist was actually eating what we call locusts, or if there was a different term there. I truly believe it was locust, but I like to look at both arguments because they're both very interesting. Anyways, with all that being said, because you have that aisle of the insects and stuff, because this April is like, so they're not clean. No, they are, but you had tarantulas and scorpions, and you had more tarantulas and scorpions that they were selling than those grasshoppers and crickets. And It's not the point that they want people eating clean and unclean insects. It's the fact that they're pushing insects as food. Tells me the reason why that's a red flag for me, April, is that, they need to replace, if they're going to have less meat or no meat and less eggs or no eggs and less produce and stuff like that, they need to have something. So, and I find it very telling. I find it a tongue-in-cheek mocking of the masses to replace it with insects. This is what you would normally feed your lizard, your pet. If you have a pet lizard or whatever, you don't think to, right now, Jeff, you could probably go to the pet store and get crickets cheaper than you could at the grocery store, but they're in some of the grocery stores, and that's my point.
let me hit you with this. I know we've talked about the beef and stuff. I'm wondering if what we're buying in the store as chicken is even chicken nowadays. Let me put my tinfoil hat on here real quick. All right.
Well, a couple of years ago, my wife went on a rabbit trail. Have you seen this? Some of the places, I'm not going to name names, but some of the fast food places stopped using the letter K when they would talk about, or they'd stop using the letter C and K together. So when you start seeing the advertisements, okay, I'm not giving names, but if it says CHIKEN, there's a reason for that. Okay, so legally speaking, that thing was born without a head and legs. It was in a lab, and it's not actually a CHICKEN. So they cannot advertise it as such.
This is my point. So I like to cook out, right? I like to cook all the time, and one of the things I like to when I barbecue chicken, I like to cook. I like to barbecue chicken with the skin on it, a bone, a thigh. I like a thigh. I like thighs. And so when I'm smoking chicken on the grill, I like to get thighs with the bone and with the skin on it, and I like to get a split breast with the skin still on it. And Ian, for probably the past 2 or 3 years, you cannot find very rarely can you find chicken breast with skin on it and a bone.
That's true. That's
and
true.
now you can rarely find chicken thighs with skin on it. And so,
we're wondering if that's a telling sign of it not being.
is that even really
an
chicken?
Indication?
Right? Yeah. So I don't know. That's listen. The enemy is trying to corrupt everything. Something that Miranda and I were talking about really heavily the other night is people don't really realize that Hasatan, Enlil, Hillel, however you want to, he is the God of this world right now. Until Yeshua comes back and kicks him to the curb, he is in control of this earth. Now, God can intervene. We were able to
4:4, Jeff.
What's that?
2 Corinthians 4:4 calls Hasatan the lowercase g God of the world.
Absolutely, yeah. And so he is about going in and corrupting everything that's in God's image, that's in the way that God created it. And we should not be, we take things for granted. I know that a lot of us are getting woke to keeping Torah. A lot of us are getting woke to different things in the scripture and things like this. But we need to realize that everything that we see around us is being corrupted by the enemy. And we need to be in a guarded state. Constantly, the New Testament writers were like, look, we don't want you to be taken unaware. We don't want you to be ignorant. We don't want you to be caught off guard. We want you to know about these things. Yeshua said, look, when you see these things come to pass, you're going to be like, oh, that's what you meant. And so there's these things that we need to kind of keep in the forefront of our mind. We're supposed to be as wise as serpents, but harmless as doves, right? We're supposed to be looking at stuff, and we're supposed to be looking at stuff to a way where we can warn people. We're supposed to, Jude tells us that we're supposed to constantly contend for the faith, right? Yeah. I mean, oh man, there's just so much in this stuff.
Yeah.
So do you think that go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'm just thinking with this whole food shortage thing, I think that they are getting us off of, they're trying to shut down all of the natural foods. They're trying to even shut down foods that they're already GMOs. Bill Gates is buying up 242 million acres of farmland.
And China.
And then China is buying up more on top of that. Why?
And they had FBI raids on Amish farms recently.
There we go. Yeah. I'm telling
you,
which
are going to be some of the most natural produce you can get is from the Amish farmers. I've been saying, not so much in the videos, but I've been saying for about a year now, because I work with individuals that are very closely knit with Amish. They're not Amish, but they're like an off branch of Amish. I say that, they wouldn't say that. They're like, we're not the same. And, was it like a month ago? I was laughing about this. One of the guys I work with, one of the youngins, I told him, I said, I know you're not Amish, but people who don't know you, they're going to think you're Amish when they see you with your family. And he said, no, why would they think that? And I said, you guys wear even the same outfit and everything. What are you talking about? You look Amish. Right. Yeah. And Jeff, he said, we're not the same. Our hats are different. And I said, how is your hat different? I've seen it. It's the same hat. And Jeff, straight face, this kid looked at me and said, the brim is at least 2 inches shorter.
It's 2 inches, brother.
He said, the brim is shorter. I said, oh my goodness. No, they're not Mennonites.
Yeah.
These guys know Mennonites and they know Amish. These guys go by a different term. It's something like old German Baptist, old Western German Baptist. They've got some interesting rules and things. Like with the Amish and Mennonite, you have beards that have to do with like if you're married and not and stuff like that. With these guys, you don't have to have a beard if you're married or not, but once you grow one, you can't shave it off. I think they're looking at the verses that talk about don't trim the beard. I think they figure if they're shaving it before it's a beard, they're not trimming the beard. So once it's grown out, now that'd be a violation of that verse.
Oh, that's
so they've got different things like that. Yeah, I know, right? And they didn't even tell me that. That's what the Spirit told me when they told me, well, once you grow one out, you can't shave it. And I was about to be like, why would you think that? And then I heard that verse and I said, oh yeah, you're not supposed to trim the beard. And I was like, they don't constitute it as a beard unless you actually grow it out. So I found that as an interesting take. It's kind of one of those neat views of where it's like, it's neat to see a differing perspective, kind of like the Tzitzits. Have you seen the different Tzitzits? There's people who put them.
Yeah.
I've seen so many different things. It's so crazy. It's so cool. I've seen it where they actually sewed along the hem of their shirt or blouse. Have you seen that? And it's on the edge, on the edge, right? I've seen, we've talked about the Native Americans, how originally they had the elbows and knees, the four corners, right? The fringes, and they'd have fringe in the, I've seen it where they make like an actual kind of like a curtain fringe.
Yeah,
and they connect it to the corners of their actual things instead of the clip. I mean, there's so many different things. It's so cool, all the different views. I'm trying to think of one of the other ones. They actually had it like on the outline of their collar, and I can't remember the argument for that. But anyways, all of that to say, I've been pushing the, when I first started this show, the very first video I did of Drawn Out of the Creator series, the very first video I did was about how Yah had been telling me for like a year by that point, and I was getting ready to do it as a Take on the World presentation, and then I heard not to do the presentation, so I didn't do it. On rebuilding the wall, metaphorically, rebuilding the wall of Nehemiah and what that means, and how the body needs to come together and unite and recognize who is body, who is not, who to build with, who not. If you know your gifts and talents, then you can actually put spade and shovel to cement and brick and mortar and things like that. So a lot of the videos I've done in this series has been kind of a lot of times in a homage or a nod back to that original message. And one of those things is I'm sitting there going, the body, you have TO, and then you've got non-TO, right? Yep. And within non-TO, you have your like Presbyterian, Methodist, you've got your charismatics, you got all these different off branches, right? But so many are off in their own bubble. And then on top of that, we've got Amish, Mennonite, and those guys. Yeah. And we're looking at what we're looking at right now. If the body was truly trying to unite, Jeff, the TO, the churchianity, the street preachers, the Amish would all be coming together and having some like super tent meeting thing, a meeting of the mind, your Amish leaders meeting with your, and I've been saying this for a year, and I don't have the connections. I know people. But if I say, hey, you guys should meet up and talk, it means who got the people. Like, it means nothing if I say it, you know what I mean? But some of these guys have some real authority and leadership. And I think as time progresses, depending on the alignment of the body, we might be seeing that. But these Amish guys, they don't even believe in half of the conspiracy stuff that you and I do. They won't even touch it. They'll laugh at it. And yet they don't do GMOs. They keep their stuff clean as best as they can. And, I mean, they might eat pork and stuff like that. But a lot of the other things, we're more alike than people realize, right, Jeff? And working with these guys, I talk to them and I start to realize there's a lot less differences, you know what I mean, than not. You see what I'm saying? I don't know. You talk about the food shortages and prepping and stuff like that, and I've been known to say, because you got to understand eschatology, end times. This was my first ministry. 2014, the first thing God told me was Yeshua's coming back. He's coming back soon, and he's real, and he's coming back soon. So from the get-go, the first 2 years, all I did was end times ministry, looking into end time signs. You bring up the 100,000 cows, and like it's not like that's nothing, because that is something, and especially now it's something. Right. But Jeff, for like 2.5, 3 years, I was daily looking at mass animal deaths, and I mean 100,000 cows. I mean, it would have fit right in there. If I go upstairs right now into my bedroom and I pull out one of my notebooks from 2015. I would have just month of June 2015. That's all it would be, just month of June. Every day, 1.2 million type of bird dropped dead out of nowhere for no reason in Norway.
All the fish that were
100,000. And when you look at those things, like the one in Norway that I told you about, it was like 100,000 ton of whatever. It was a specific type of fish. All the other fish in that water were not affected. The bee die-offs, Jeff. There's bee die-offs where they found the exoskeletons of bees. No, and they didn't. Okay. That was one of my favorite.
You're hitting my heart right here.
Over a million of them, Jeff, and they couldn't explain there was no fire damage to the exoskeletons, all kinds of things like this.
People don't realize that, man. Listen, with bees dying off, guys. We're done. I don't like getting stung worse than more than anybody else. But I'm seriously considering trying to find a place here on our property and putting some hives out there. That's a real concern with the bees. I mean,
it's not just it's not just Lake Mead. That was actually, and I forgot. I used to have a month ago when I was going to do a video on this, because I was going to talk about the waters of the world. And
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Euphrates, you've got Tigris, right? And we can talk about that in a minute too, if you'd like. But Lake Mead isn't even the only lake, even in the Southwest. There's all kinds of issues with the lakes in the Southwest right now, but it's not even just the Southwest, and it's not even just America. This is a worldwide thing right now that we're seeing. Lakes are going down, seas are going down, rivers are going down. They're finding all kinds of things, and it's funny. Like you'll pull up like Google or Amazon or AOL or whatever. Do people even use AOL anymore, or Yahoo or anything like that? The search engines, and they give you the news, right? The AOL news, right? They won't say such and such lake is drying up. Instead, what they'll say is such and such amount of dead bodies found in lake such and such. And then you click on it and you go through the whole article, and there's like one little sentence in the middle of the article that says, well, this was possible because the lake levels have been dropping.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, they were freaking out about the Hoover Dam recently because it's the lowest it's been in I don't know how many decades. I was looking at the stats about this about a month ago.
This is Lake Travis in Austin, Texas. I lived in Austin for about 12 years. And this was May 27th of this year. And this is a pretty wide shot. This is a yacht right here in the center. This is a big sailing yacht right here. And the water, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the water line used to be up where these trees are. And this is big, massive Lake Travis, and it is so far down. It's unbelievable. This stuff is real, guys. Lake Mead, man, that's I
watched a video. See if we can find it. I watched a video on YouTube of this guy going. He's taking his boat to one of his lakes in California, I think it was. Yeah. And he was showing you each year they have a sign showing the digression of the lake. Each year, Jeff. And these signs were hundreds to thousands of feet apart per year.
Yeah.
Jeff. And we have to comprehend this. Okay. This is not just the edge of something that's flat and thin. We're not talking about cutting off the edge of a piece of paper. We're talking the borders of a lake. So when you move in 100 feet, that's not 100 feet of water. That's 100 feet from the edge of the water to the other edge. You see what I'm saying? You've got all that depth, and that goes around the freaking lake, Jeff.
Right.
This is intense. It's insane. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it because I've watched so many videos since then. I'd have to go to my history.
This is Lake Mead. This is a picture here, guys, from July 2000. The middle picture is July 2021, and the last picture here on the right is July 2022. Look at this, and this is huge. This is huge, and you can see how much it's going in. I think with this article here, they've got maybe not. Yeah, I know I've seen videos like where people would be. They would have in this little area here, they would have like a marina type thing, and every year they keep having to move the boat docks further and further inland to where now the parking area is like way back.
Yep.
And just crazy stuff.
I've seen multiple videos like that. And the one that I was talking about where the guy was showing the signs, he was saying that he really wanted to get on his boat because he thinks that this is the last summer that they're going to let boats out there.
Wow.
And that there was a long line of boats, and he said that of all the years he's been coming, it's never been like this, and of course you've got all these lakes and you've got the issues of the water usage and things like that. But if we're going to talk shrinking water, Jeff,
I'm going.
We have to go there, right? We have to. And again, most of the listeners we have an awesome audience for this show. I mean, Take on the World in general has a pretty awesome audience, but I'm a little biased, I guess, about those who come into Drawn Out of the Creator's show, because our chat tends to be people who are pretty up to speed on a lot of topics. It's hard for me to bring up stuff that they don't already know, Jeff. That's how it seems to me.
It is.
And I know you know what I'm talking about because a lot of them go to your show. Yeah.
And they're very knowledgeable.
They are very knowledgeable.
Let's see. I've got some videos. I'm just trying to find an article because it'd be kind of, I don't want to get a copyright infringement or anything like that on the show and get it kicked off. We've
already said so many things that we'll see. Chris hasn't yelled at me yet, man. We've stayed away from some of the buzzwords, but we'll see. Maybe it helps that the image and the title have nothing to do with. It's not like clickbait of like we're talking about blank blank, and everybody's like, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got, you know, I went and saw the most recent Jurassic World movie. I saw it opening day. Okay. And I took my daughter. It was the one and only time my daughter's ever been to a movie theater. And maybe some people in the chat won't like that I did this, but we don't let them watch a lot of secular stuff. But some of the Jurassic movies are on our accepted list, you know. And my daughter's watched Chosen multiple times through. She's watched 70 AD multiple times through. 90% of the cartoon stuff is biblical stuff. And we've had her watch stuff where we've had friends say, you know, it's kind of messed up because it's very adult in the sense of like it deals with death and things. But you know, funny thing, Jeff, and it's funny but not funny. My daughter, not even 7 years old, she's dealt with a lot of death already. Okay, she's already watched. She's already watched 2 great grandparents go and a grandpa go within a year, right? And on top of knowing she's met Skiba. Okay, right. She's there. I can't remember what the list was because my wife and I sat down, and the more we talked about it, the more we realized there was more people. And then there was people that she didn't meet, but she knew about, and that we had talked about. You know. Yeah. But yeah, Jurassic World, man. You know what they talked about all throughout that movie? Have you seen that? Yeah. Yeah. All they talked. I mean, they do the locust thing, and the guy goes, "Well, what's next?" And he goes, "Well, biblically speaking, you know."
Biblically speaking, yep.
You know, and I mean, they had food shortages, and the locusts were being used to target non-GMO, basically. Right. And so you saw famine, pestilence, end times. They literally called it biblical end times throughout the movie, Jeff.
The whole thing.
A secular movie about dinosaurs, and the whole time they're talking about Bible, plagues, famine, pestilence. You know?
Yeah, Miranda and I were talking. We went to the movie theater and saw that one, and we were talking about that the whole way through. And it is so interesting to see the little bits that Hollywood hints to some of these things, and then how they also flip, and they're just telling the old Watcher narrative of how God's the bad guy, Inlel's the good guy. That's constant. Right. That is constant.
That's what they do. But you know, Jeff, Jurassic World, that last one, Dominion or whatever they call it, right? They released it this year, right? Which means you have to produce it and then act it and shoot it and record it before this year. But a lot of the things I talked about weren't happening until this year, Jeff. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you just see that, and it's just all right. Go ahead, pull up your article. What you got?
Here's an article. This is due to the Euphrates drying up, and they found a 3,400-year-old city because the rivers are drying up. Just incredible stuff, guys. I was trying to find there's a ton of YouTube articles that you can go to. If you type in Euphrates drying up in 2020, there's a ton of these articles like this. But here's some images of this mighty river drying up. Look at this. This is the thing that feeds the Fertile Crescent, right? This is what and what's the prophecy? That
right. Well, that's the real point there, right?
This thing is going to dry up. Well, go ahead.
Go ahead. You're on the roll, Jeff. We'll discuss.
This is going to dry up and allow the kings of the east to come in and invade Israel. And listen, can we just be non-political for a moment? The land of Israel is not this tiny little sliver of land that they currently occupy. What did Yah promise Abraham? It wasn't this little tiny thing that's, maybe twice the size of Rhode Island,
size of New Jersey.
Not the size of New Jersey. I mean, it's
almost the same shape as New Jersey too.
It is. Literally, it's this massive area of land. And God is going to come and restore that. And listen, there's some stuff that we're about to see. Gosh, do we want to get into the angels that have been imprisoned?
Okay,
all
so I
kinds of
mean,
stuff.
yeah, so that's one of the things I wanted to put this up, and I brought it down because you were showing images, and I didn't want it to block up, but I thought that was interesting. I saw somebody in the chat earlier said that they were a little scared, and I wanted to discuss that as well. So before we continue this, if we can just stop real quick and then come back to this, okay?
Yeah.
And we'll go back to the prepping and stuff, and we'll talk about what you and I think is good advice for that and stuff like that. But overall, scripturally speaking, we're warned of these things, right?
Yeah.
Birth pains and labor pains, we're warned of these things. We're warned of tribulations and trials. We're warned of persecution. We are warned of famines and pestilences, a third of the world burning up and stuff like that. And that's when you're there. And if we're not there, which it seems like it's encroaching to get there, but if we're not even there yet,
right,
we're still, dare I say, even possibly promised these hardships. Okay. And right. I'm not saying the whole suck it up buttercup. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need to scripturally look at these things. Okay. Because it's not like you and I and everybody else, whether no matter how aligned somebody is, doesn't get freaked out about this a little bit, right? You have to look at the world and keep in mind a couple things. Number one, it's the matrix, right? And I'm not talking about digital coding, although kind of am, right? We're talking about the programming that exists that we see in the flesh through our eyes, right? That is what we see. And it's the flesh that pays attention to the wind and the water and the waves that makes us start to sink when we're walking on the water.
Yep.
It's the flesh that recognizes the flesh. It's the flesh that recognizes the matrix. But the spirit recognizes that the confines of that matrix aren't even as confining as they seem to the flesh. Otherwise, we wouldn't see miracles of healing, the dead rising, food, coming out of nowhere, things of this nature. All these laws of physics that are undone with crossings of rivers and all these other things, right? All these movements of God. So obviously, the ways of God are not deterred by his own programming that he created. Right. So when we look at these things and we start to stress out, we need to keep that in mind. Number one, it's not as confining as it looks. Number two, we were told these things were going to happen. Number three, this is for the here and now. This is temporary. So even if you do go through the famines and pestilences, even if you are dealing with radioactive whatever stuck in your house waiting for IRS, Russia, China, FEMA camp.
You got IRS stormtroopers coming down to collect those $2.
It is what it is at the end of the day. I mean, you look at the apostles and stuff like that, and they talk about, taking joy in the tribulations and partaking in the suffering of Yeshua and things like that. And you read about it, and sometimes, depending on who you are and where you're at in your walk and how many times you've read that, you might go, what? These people are nuts. Or you might be like, oh, hallelujah. But at the end of the day, reading that is one thing, being in that situation is another. And we need to keep these things in mind. I mean, at the end of the day, our goal, our end point, the treasure that we're supposed to be having of the heart is supposed to be stored not here. Right, Jeff? Right? Where's the treasure stored?
Rust and moth will get to them, but store treasures in heaven.
I mean, if you want to be able to quietly, like a lamb, go to the slaughter, whistle with joy to the guillotines, like your Corey Tenenbaum types of being in a FEMA camp situation and worshiping and praising while you're ready to die because you haven't eaten in 3.5 days, whatever it is. It has to be because your focus, like Peter when he was walking on the water, on Yeshua. You have to be focused on the kingdom. You have to be focused on the Father. You have to be.
And hey, this is let me just throw something in here real quick. We're definitely not trying to promote any kind of fear porn or anything like that. We're just talking. We're chit chatting tonight. What in the world? And
what in the world, Jeff?
We're trying to bring out some information that some of you may or may not have heard of. Some things that you can or cannot do to prep for these things. But at the end of the day, let's say you're a hardcore prepper. Don't put your faith in what you have prepped with. Your faith, like Ian is talking about, still needs to be in Yah. God did provide an escape for 8 people in the flood. 8 is enough. That's the first episode of 8 is enough. It happened during the flood. He also provided for a nation in the land of Goshen during the Exodus. He provided some protections. They went through some of the plagues, but not all of them. So don't put should you prep? I think we have an obligation to be prepared, but don't put your faith in your preparations. Keep your faith in Yah. Let me just tell you something. I just had my birthday party, and at my birthday we had some friends and things like that from my work, and then some of the people that was there are on the emergency. I don't even want to say too much. They deal with drones, right? They're training on the newest drones, and they were talking to me about a drone that they were training with, and that they can hover 2 miles away and read license plates.
Yeah, you're telling me about that.
See facial expressions. They've got over 10 different types of infrared cameras, lenses, and different, able to see stuff. So I know a lot of people that are prepping and saying, well, I'll just go off and live off the land. I'll go way out in the woods. Listen, they can find you. We talked about this on our show back in March of 2020. If you want to go back and look on our channel, it's a little bit easier to find on the Way Remnant on YouTube. I think it's March 20th. And there's a program that Miranda and I did. It was about a 3-hour program on the end times. And one of the things that we talked about was the capabilities of some of these drones. And then we heard more about it this last time, but some of the capabilities of these drones are able to not only find your crops, but they're able to go and spray things on your crops to make them infertile. They'll keep growing beautiful, lush foliage, but they won't flower out. Just different kinds of things, guys. So again, should you prep? Absolutely. I think you should. I think we have an obligation. Prepping's great to do these things. And you know what? It's a great thing just in case of just a normal emergency, a hurricane, a tornado, a flash flood, being without power for several days. You need to be in a place where you can, take care of you and your family. That's your obligation as a man or a family leader. You need to be able to do these things. But at the end of the day, don't put your faith in all your hope in yourself. You're supposed to put your faith in God, because in those days, we don't know. Like you were saying, maybe we're the first couple to go to the guillotine. Maybe we're the first couple to do whatever. Hallelujah. Well,
the thing is, Jeff, is you could stock up, you could be off grid, you could have self-sufficient, you could have rain collectors from your gutters that also purify the water and then store it, and you have water purification process along with the filtration process, and it stores it for a long time. You could have the dried foods and canned foods and all these things directly from your garden and your Amish farmer connections. We can go over the ideal fantasy, have all that, and still consider those scriptural examples we have of the guy who stocked up the tower but then died before he could enjoy anything therein.
That's right. He put his faith in
and that doesn't necessarily mean guillotine or anything, Jeff.
Yeah, he just died.
You could just tomorrow, any one of us.
What did Yeshua say? What did Yeshua say? He said, "Thou fool, thou soul is required of thee tonight." That's what he said.
Yeah.
Why was he a fool? Why was he a fool? Hang on. Why the term fool? Proverbs 4. A fool says in his heart, there is no God. He was not trusting in Yah. He was trusting in his own self. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I'm not against this. Like Samson was talking about, I was thinking, and I've been thinking this for a while, that Take on the World, the conferences, I like the idea of connecting them to Sukkot feasts and things like that. Like we were trying to do this year. By the way, for anybody who hasn't caught on, we're not doing that this year. It fell through. Yeah. Unless Liz and Chris come out announcing that they're doing something. But from what I understand, it fell through on all corners there. We tried. We all gave it a hit. Jeff probably hit it the hardest out of everybody. Jeff really put in some work to it, but it just didn't work out. Yeah. But on top of the feast and gathering and getting people for that, I've been thinking now's the time to start doing water purification seminars. Gardening seminars, chicken homesteading seminars, tying knots. Nobody ever talks about tying knots, Jeff.
Captain
You know,
Notch.
I've been looking up knot work a lot lately on stuff, and I'm watching it because we learned some things in the Army, but it's always good to refresh and go over things. I'm going to start teaching my little ones how to tie knots, and there's all kinds of different knots for different things. And I'm sitting there going, all these homesteading stuff, people want to figure out how to start a fire, and they want to figure out how to sharpen a knife, and they want to know how to make a bow and stuff like that. But tying knots seems to be on very, very little radar, you know. And and on top of all that, how many of these things are being discussed at Christian seminars?
Well, and then like you get people that
outside
are
of maybe Jamie Walden's. He might be doing.
People are going out and buying all these seeds and buying all this stuff, and they've never tried to grow anything. Listen, guys, there's a learning curve. You want to go out and try to plant a garden? There's a learning curve to doing this stuff, and you need to be messing around and practicing and trying this out now.
Talking to people, going to farmers markets. My wife and I go to farmers markets once a week now. You know, and you can make connections and stuff like that. I have an awesome lamb butcher connection here that they eat non-GMO stuff. They're treated very nicely. They graze in the open type of. It's an awesome lamb butcher connection, and I'm going to lose it when we get out of here. Yeah, willing us leaving, but it does seem like that's the plan here. But you know, farmers markets, man. Not only can you get stuff that you can trust better than the grocery stores. I'm not going to say it's 100% perfect. You got to do what you can, but at the end of the day, it's going to beat the grocery store. It's going to beat shopping at Walmart. Please, if you're shopping for groceries at Walmart, start considering farmers markets. You know, look into your local area, see if they've got a few left. I know it's more of a summer thing, but some of them go into the fall. Mm-hmm. But that also gets you connections, and you can ask about stuff. And if you start looking into like Facebook events, I've been looking at Facebook events all summer. There's secular seminar things that talk about. Jeff, even the secular people are looking into homesteading and survival stuff. You know,
get you a pressure cooker. Learn how to can. Listen. It's you need to learn how to be able to preserve things without electricity. We were talking earlier about New York City. Can you imagine living in one of those skyscrapers? Right. Let's say you're on the 50th floor. Boom, power's out. How do you get down? All right, you got 50 flights of stairs. Remember watching the first Ghostbusters when they're going up, like you're right before the main boss fight. You know, they're going up all these stairs and they're just dying as they go upstairs because they're all out of shape. Okay, power's out and you got 50 flights of stairs to go down with all the possessions that you're going to have. Just getting to the bottom before you start trying to walk out of New York. Think of that. Think about where you're at. Think about where you live. Think about where you live. Think about where you work. Things go south. How do you get back home? How do you get back to your family? Do you have a plan? Listen, guys, if you know anything about me, you know I am a planner, and I like to plan things. And we need to listen to Yah, not live in fear, but we need to make preparations. Paul talks about in a couple of his epistles, I made preparations to go here, to go see you, to go do these things. Not all of those came to pass. So think about what's going on in your life. We've talked about a lot tonight. We've talked about things happening in New York. We've talked about things happening in the Euphrates. We've talked about food shortages. We've talked about alternative food sources that are being grown for us that may or may not be actual food, and different things. What in the world, Ian? What in the world's going on? I'm telling you, we need to be in a place where we are learning how to live supernaturally and depending on Yah.
Yeah.
We need to do our part and be prepared to do those things. But at the same time, we need to be listening to the voice of God, following the cloud, and listen.
They would set up the tent when it stopped. And
That's
when
right.
it started moving, they'd pack up. And that's the thing, Jeff. That's the ultimate. And that's usually what I end up telling people. I've talked about this in videos a lot. Talked about prepping is great and all, but at the end of the day, I strongly suggest, you can think on these things and look at these things and gain up some knowledge, but don't put too much stock into it, and make sure you're prayerfully considering, because you could be preparing for your environment and then you have to move and everything you've learned almost goes out the window. You could be preparing jars when you'd be better off with like was said here, dehydrated food. That's what the military does.
Mhm.
We had MREs. That was a lot of that was dehydrated food. You would add hot water,
Yeah.
and then you were able to eat it. And that's actually a really brilliant tip. My wife's been looking into that a lot, and that's a really good point right here that I think.
Yeah, we just my mom for one of the birthday things she got me was a nice dehydrator, and we've been playing around with it a little bit. So that's a thing. I'm telling you guys, you need to get out of the stores. If you're going to Walmart, just stay on the outside. Don't go in the middle, right? If you're in a grocery store, try to stay on the outside. Don't go in the middle and get chemicals and junk and stuff like that. I mean, you're just poisoning yourself. And then like Ian's talking about, get with these farmers markets, get with these local food providers, support them, make connections with them. And is it more expensive? Absolutely. But then you know what you're eating. Again, gosh, what?
Well, Jeff, we got localized homemade honey through people who do their own bees, and it was cheaper than the grocery stores.
Really?
And it was natural honey, Jeff.
Wow.
So yes, farmers markets are going to cost you a little bit more often than not, but not necessarily. There's one that my wife goes to. She's got an Amish farmers market that she goes to. She's got this farmers. She's got like 4 of them, man. And she's constantly, I'll be at lunch at work and she's like, hey, can I go to the farmers market again for this? And I'm like, which one? For what? How much are you going to spend? My goodness. You know what I mean? But some of them, man, when you catch on to their patterns, you can actually pay less for more natural. And some of these places you go to, they'll have like they one of the ones we went to this last weekend, Jeff, they had a box of tomatoes and it said tomatoes for canning. And that was their way of saying like it's last chance tomatoes, whole box of them, right? For like a few bucks. And you're sitting there going, if you're canning, that's a gold mine. Or if you want to eat 50 tomatoes in one day, that's a gold mine. You know what I mean?
And most of these guys are growing, the ones that we've talked to at the farm, they're growing heirloom seeds. Yeah. And so what you can do is you take that tomato, you get off all the slimy part because that's a germination inhibitor that God put around that. You dry that off, you get that off of there, and then now you've got seeds to plant really good tomatoes. Buy a bell pepper from these guys. Take the seeds out and then dry them, store them. Now you've got bell pepper seeds. You just think about it. Now, if you buy that stuff in the store, you don't know what you're getting, and it probably maybe it's already done where you can't grow anything off of it. They're dead. Like you go buy a watermelon without seeds.
Yeah, the seedless. Well, you got to ask yourself, why is it seedless to begin with?
Why is it seedless? Yeah, that's not natural.
It's another tongue-in-cheek thing, Jeff, because your fruit of your loins, we want them seedless as well, right? Isn't that what they're pushing with all their this and things they want you to be ingesting and all this, that, and the other? It's all about making it so it doesn't reproduce, and then they do that to your food to put in your body that they want you to not reproduce as well.
They want us to be sexless too. Let's just wipe all that out.
Right. Yeah. There's a whole thing to that, isn't there?
Oh man. What in the world, brother? What in the world?
What in the world? I'm telling you. But if the body was to act a little bit more like a community, we're to start working on skills and services and stuff like that, and I'm not talking about cult like I've got 12 acres in Arkansas. I need 50 families to all build freaking cookie cutter houses so that we can make the news and they'll make us the next Waco, Texas, even if we're not. You see what I'm saying?
Not doing that.
I'm not necessarily saying that. I mean, the Spirit leads you to do it, great, but otherwise you better make sure, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, if we were to act more like a community and have like more of within 100-mile radius, I know of so many TO people. I know of so many genuine believers. Okay, I'm going to have bees at my house and chickens. That's got eggs and honey, right? Are you going to start doing this? We have some seamstresses working on our house. We can alter and work with fabric and stuff like that. What do you got to trade for that? Start making those connections now.
Right.
I mean, if we're getting anywhere near where it seems like it might be, one of the things that tends to bring up is the whole mark, right? And how people get it so that they can buy, sell, and trade. Well, if you're buy, selling, and trading within your own, it makes it a little bit less tempting, right?
Yeah, if you're bartering amongst brothers of the faith, It makes it a whole lot easier. And guys, listen, that's and we need to put our trust in Yah.
Yeah.
Put your trust in Yah, guys. Listen, if you're listening to anything I'm saying tonight, and I know Ian agrees with this, you need to be able to discern the voice of Yah speaking to you. Too many times people they think they hear something from God and they just jump and run. You need to be able to make sure that you're hearing from God, especially in the days and times that we're living in now. If you look back to the early believers following the way, they were living under Nero, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they found out that you were a believer, they come and grab your family. They put pitch on you, put you in a coliseum. They pour pitch all over you and light you up and burn you alive as entertainment.
Roman candles.
They use you as public lighting during the night to light the streets. Guys, listen to the voice of God. Understand that He will speak to you. The same Holy Spirit, the same Ruach HaKodesh that speaks to me, that speaks to Ian, will speak to your heart. And you need desperately to be able to hear and discern that voice, because there's coming a day, I believe soon, Ian.
And if you have obedience already as muscle memory,
yeah,
you're more likely to get up and move when it tells you something like strike the rock or speak to the rock for water or whatever. Because that's the thing, Jeff. We're getting to that point where people hear the voice once in a while, but the obedience and alignment is so weak that when you're told, hold up a plate in your kitchen to receive food, they're not going to do it because they're thinking that's not how it's going to work. And then they starve in their kitchen.
Well, what about Elijah, Eliyahu, right? He's a mighty prophet of God, and he's being fed by the brook Cherith, right? He's doing things great. And God the whole time is saying, look, you need to go down to this widow woman over here. He's like, no, this is great. I've got this great background. I've got this great thing going on. Everything's great. God had to dry up the creek, right? To get him to move to the place. We need to be able to, just like your military background training, when the command comes out to move, you don't, oh, well, maybe I should or shouldn't. You go. But how do you know? You know because you're used to being under that authority. You're used to being under that kingship. Can we just say that? People, listen, guys. Yeah, Yeshua came as a suffering servant. Guess what? He's not coming back as a suffering servant. He's coming back as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He's our King, and he's coming back as the not the private in the host of the armies of God. He's the commander, right? He's coming back, and we need to be able to listen to his commands. We need to be able to listen to his voice and act, just like when we were talking about a while ago. You're in the camp, you start seeing that cloud move. If you don't get up and move, you're in the desert. You're going to be burned up.
Yeah, you're done for. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's the thing. Like when we were in the barracks, right? Because both times I was sent overseas, I was living in a barracks. They wouldn't let me not be in a barrack for the second time, and I was real annoyed by that. But anyways, you didn't know when you were deploying. Right. They would not, that was blackout information. They were not going to give it out to, especially the low ranking guys like me. Right. But even some of the high ranking guys didn't know until like there was only so many hours in advance. Right. So any day now, and you might have an idea of what month, but you're not even guaranteed that month. Right. So you're just like, okay, I know we're going to be heading out sometime. I think it's going to be March, but then it could have been February. It could have been April or May. You know what I mean? Right. So what every night, Jeff, you're going to be like sitting there with your bag on your chair. Right. Not able to sleep, Jeff, because you're waiting to be called upon?
No, there's no shalom there. There's no shalom.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when they knock on your door and they give you the orders, because you're familiarized with how the orders are given,
right?
There is no questioning or discerning. This is my unit. This is not one of my friends playing a prank on me.
Right.
This is not infiltration of another government, company, whatever.
Yep.
This is not a test. It's an actual order to go.
Right.
And at that moment, you pack your bags and you go.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so when you talk about moving with the Spirit, if you are not familiar with the Spirit, those orders might have you questioning things.
Right.
If you are not moving with the Spirit, you might be sitting at the edge of your bed with your bag packed unnecessarily for so long, and then the day you give up the next morning is the time that you would have gotten the orders. You see what I'm saying, Jeff? I mean, at the end of the day, prepping, non-prepping, whatever, the most important thing would have to be being in alignment with the Spirit. It has to be.
It's got to be. That's got to be first. And I think that we get too focused on the prepping side. And again, I think that's us trusting in our own source. I think that we should prep. I think that we should be responsible. But at the end of the day, we need to be listening to the voice of God, because listen, there is coming a time, and I feel it in my heart. I could be wrong. I could be way wrong. And we're here for another 50, 60 years. That's fine. We could be here a lot longer than that. I don't know. We could be gone, in 2 weeks. We need to hear that voice of God. There is something about. Brandon and I were listening to a really great teaching. I won't mention the guy's name because it might be kind of controversial, but there was a guy that we were listening to the other night that I really, really liked. He was talking about what it is, the word Christian. I know that's kind of a dirty word in our circles, but but what he was talking about was that there were really three steps. First, someone is a believer. Second, they come into discipleship. And third, it's not that they call themselves a Christian. It's that other people saw Messiah in them, and they were calling them Christians or Christ.
Right. Well, that's how the term came about.
Yeah, that's how the term came about.
These people were calling themselves, they were just saying we're of the way. They weren't worried about titles or labels or anything. Torah observing Christian believer. Right. They didn't care about any titles, Jeff. It was, let me tell you about the way.
Yeah. And that to me that is something today that we need to focus on, because I think there's a lot of people that are believers. I think the modern church is filled with people that aren't even believers, right? They go there because their wife makes them go, or their parents make them go. They're not even believers and they're going to church, right? Then you have some that are believers, but they're not disciples. They're not following after the ways of Messiah, right? They're not trying to actively meditate on his word day and night, right? They're not. And so that's what a disciple is. That's not even a religious term. That was someone that disciplines themselves after their teacher. So, are you a believer? Okay, that's the first big question. The second question is, are you a disciple? Are you actively under discipleship? And then comes, are you a Christian? Well, do other people come to me when they're needing help with a spiritual crisis, or they're needing to know something about God? They're needing to know some wisdom from the scriptures. That's how you recognize those things. Does the people at work recognize you as someone that follows the way and follows that has godly wisdom? The people at work, do your enemies? I mean, all these things. It's not what you think about yourself. It's what other people are recognizing. And I think that we need to get to a place where we are judging our own self. Are we that believer? Are we in discipleship? Are we actually to a place where people are coming to us for that guidance, that wisdom, that listening to the voice of God, listening to the Spirit of God, and then trying to disciple others and get them to that place? Man, I'm telling you, we need to cut out all the other junk. I've got an old message that I used to preach a lot, is too much meat. Are we just in a place where we like the word of the month club? Every month we get shipped a new package of this new revelation of the word, right? And we get turned on, we get excited about that. But what are we doing with all the other boxes that we received all the other months?
Right. You got the box, got excited to open it up. knowledge was puffing it up. You got the itch in the ears, or maybe it was a true revelation, whatever. But the workbooks, the activities in the box gained nothing but dust. Right.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So
that's a good point.
Oh man, listen, I'm telling you, we've got a lot of stuff about to hit.
So Jeff,
you mentioned the vampire.
Yeah, vampire like demons. One of the girls said that she wants to work on her fitness and she wants to be not in the back of the camp when if there's an exodus. And I said, the back of the camp is where that's where the Amalekites attacked, because if you look at it, the Amalekites were always going after the weak, and the vessels were at the back of the camp. And typically, to be in the back of the camp wasn't necessarily those who had troubles walking, but those who were less prepared, less ready, and less willing to move when the pillar would move.
Yeah.
They had a hardness of a heart. They had a grumbling in the spirit. You really look into those patterns, you'll start to see who was at the back of the camp. Okay. And it had some words there for that. And the Amalekites would try to pick them off. And I had an issue with the Amalekites because they would always try to hide and lie in wait to pick off those at the back of the camp. But anyways, that's what the Amalekites did. That's what they've always done. And if you look at the spirit of the Amalekites, people always talk about the Jezebel spirit and stuff like that, but they don't ever talk about the Amalekite spirit. There's Amalekite spirit. It's the type of individual, it's the type of spiritual influence that draws a person to attack those who are the most vulnerable, the most weak, those who grumble in the heart. And maybe that's not why they're thinking they're attacking them, but it causes them to be spiritually vulnerable. And they get picked off by the so-called vampire-like demons. That's just one of the interpretations. My favorite interpretation of the word, of the meaning of Amalekite. You can actually interpret that as a vampire-like demon. That's why I was bringing that up. But Jeff, the Euphrates River and the Tigris River, specifically Euphrates River, going back to that, because we cut off in the middle of that.
We did.
Jeff. Okay, so
an hour ago.
I've been talking about the Euphrates drying up since 2014. That was Euphrates River. Anybody who goes back to my old Facebook stuff, 2014, March, April, I'm like brand new, born again. What am I talking about? Die-offs, proof of the creation, proof of the flood, anti-evolution, and the drying up of the Euphrates and Tigris River, because this has been going on for quite a while, but it's progressively getting worse. You don't really see the river gaining back and expanding and then decreasing. It's just ever shrinking. And you can look at some of the satellite images or the plane's eye view, bird's eye view, what have you, and you can see that it's diminished quite greatly. But some of my favorite footage is from people on ground walking up to it, because it's disgusting to the point where you're like, river, that's not a river. That's not even a creek at this point. Okay. But, so two things with the Euphrates River, right? Okay. So, actually three things, but you brought up the kings of the East.
Right.
You put me on the spot earlier with speculation, Jeff. So now it's your turn.
All right.
Kings of the East. Are we possibly talking China and Russia?
Yeah. That's my
point. Jeff, part B.
Another one.
Part B.
Your guys. Yeah. Your guys.
I'm keeping you on that. I'm not getting there yet. I'm not getting there, Jeff. Okay, so Kings of the East, but you could consider Turkey as well. Part B of speculation, putting you in the spotlight here of just your opinion of what you think, maybe, perhaps, possibly, whatever.
Thus think of
Jeff. Kings of the East, Russia and or China or both. Gog Magog, Ezekiel 38.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jeff, 2014, 2015, when I was big into eschatology, and every day I was writing about it, studying about it, debating with people on Facebook about it, back when I was known as a Facebook person, Facebook preacher, that was my platform and stuff like that. Gog Magog and being Russia and China was the average consensus back then for Ezekiel 38. Russia and China, right?
Right.
I mean, you have the Chinese wall was called the Wall of Magog, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you go back and then all of a sudden there was these arguments of, Russians versus Scythians. And then it becomes this whole issue of Eastern Europe. And then before you know it, like 6-7 years ago, Jeff, I don't know if you saw the turn, but I saw the turn. It went from 90% of people who studied it and talked about it and agreed Russia and China were pretty big probabilities actually, for Gog Magog, Ezekiel 38, to where now it seems like that's the most unfavored position. Have you seen that? I mean, it's been all but dismissed as completely, ramparts of Magog. That's right.
I think this was
the original name of Wall of China.
I think this was a deliberate attack by the enemy, and he brought in division. We have so many leaders in our community that don't listen to the Spirit of God. and they are tossed about
to
and fro by every wind of doctrine. And they're like that Revelation of the Month Club. And where are they getting their inspiration from? I don't know. But if you go back and you look at historically, you look at the documents, you look at the ramparts of Magog. Yeah. Why was this wall built so tall? It was built tall because of giants.
Right.
We have the Lord Mayor parade where they bring out Gog and Magog.
Yeah,
right?
I used to post about that in 2014, 2015. Yeah. I'm surprised you know about that. For anybody who doesn't know, in London, and I think it's London of London, right?
Yeah.
They have the parade of Gog and Magog, and it's these two huge giant wicker things that they have on these thrones that they carry through.
Yeah.
And
so
that
I think, yes, my opinion. This is my opinion. I think this is clearing the way for a supernatural army. All right. This is thus think of Jeff, Kings of the East. I'm not even necessarily, it may not even necessarily be the country of China or the country of Russia. I am thinking.
So when you think Kings of East, are you thinking what people would normally call as princes? When it talks about the princes battling Daniel, in the book of Daniel, you had the prince was kept by the prince of what was it, Persia? The prince of it was talking about a spiritual entity, a fallen angel entity.
Absolutely.
And Iran.
Yeah, and we see that the scriptures talk about men's heart failing them for the things that are coming upon the earth. These beasts in Revelation coming upon the earth and killing people. These are not the typical term for beasts that people think of are cows, right? We don't have cows coming on and killing people. We've got, I think, Rush Dizdar talked about these beasts and things. And this was what we were calling cryptids. You asked me, I'm gonna throw it out there. I'll just go get a Fringe Friday for you. How about that? We'll do that. I think it's things like dogmen. I think it's things like giants. I think it's things like it talks about 1 million horsemen coming out of the abyss.
I was wondering if you were going to connect that to the whole joke.
Yeah, I don't think that's 1 million men sitting on horses. I think that's centaurs.
Yeah, Skiba used to talk about that. The 2 million
Apollo,
army of centaurs.
Yeah, Apollo was the creator of the centaurs, and Apollyon is their leader. So I give some credence to that.
So here's the thing, Jeff. I used to be right on point with all of that, Jeff, like a couple years ago, but I started backing up a little bit just because. Sure. And it's funny because the same phrase I'm going to use is the same phrase I used a couple of years ago. So I'm not against that stuff, Jeff. I'm starting to lean away, and this is why. Okay, so 2014 up until 2020.
We got to hit this in just a minute, but go ahead.
Yeah. That's funny too. I was gonna post that thing, and I said nah, and I went to sleep, and then the next morning, all of my friends had it on their news feed, and I was like, well, there's no point now. Everybody already beat, but I missed my chance to get it out there a little bit more. But yeah, we'll touch on that in a second. We've got a couple questions from April too. She's got all kinds of. She's all over the place asking the hard questions, and I don't know if she realizes. I don't know April, so I don't know how far into things she is, but the questions she's asking are a lot more difficult than possibly she realizes. But okay, so
go back with your phrase.
2014 to 2017.
Yeah,
I talked about the giants, the dogmen, and all that stuff, and I believe that stuff existed, and I believe some of those things still do exist. I'm not saying that those things aren't real, Jeff. I'm not saying that the enemy doesn't use those things. I'm not saying that they don't have an end times role in certain ways, but my argument back then is as in the days of Noah. And as in the days of Noah, you have giants and all these crazy things going on. And nowadays, my argument is I don't think we're going to be seeing a Ghostbusters, apocalyptic, Tomb Raider, crazy creatures in the streets because as in the days of Noah. So I'm using the same phrase. And my argument then was back then they exist, and they did, as in the days of Noah. But also as in the days of Noah and as in the days of Lot, when you're looking at Luke chapter 17 and Luke 21, especially when it talks about as in the days of Lot, it talks about they are giving into marriage and marrying, and some people jump to the whole homosexual thing. We've talked about this, and I think the whole giving into marriage and more importantly, it's almost like it's highlighted without being highlighted. It says, and they were building. And it seems to me that the main emphasis as in the days of Lot for Luke chapter 17 and 21 was that They were expecting a future, as in the days of Noah. There was prophecies of end time. There was this huge ark being built, but as in the days of Noah, as in the days of Lot, they were building for a future that would not come because they didn't truly believe otherwise. And so I'm thinking,
and they were married and given in marriage, right?
Giants walking down the street here and crashing houses and stuff like that, and a 2 million man army of centaurs makes it a little bit harder for me to think, as in the days of Lot, of building for a future, unless you're talking like very end to where it's just like it doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah,
but that's where I'm at with that. I'm not trying to throw water on you, man. I'm really not, because I know where you're coming from, and I was there.
Yeah, okay, I'm open. I'm definitely open to both, because I've seen that as well. Yeah. My main point in saying that is that we need to be open. Yeah. I could be totally right. Ian could be totally right. We could both be totally right. We could both be totally wrong. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, the wouldn't sees and couldn't sees of the day they were supposed to be the most learned people of the scriptures, and they totally missed the coming of Yeshua. Yeah. So you asked my opinion. That's my opinion. My biggest opinion, though, is we could be really right or we could be really wrong, and I'm not going to be so dogmatic. That's one thing that, man, I love. Can I just say I love you? I love about you, brother, is that when we talk, sometimes we agree with, we're like fighting each other to get the words out. And then sometimes we're on completely opposite sides of an issue. And you know what? We still love each other and get along.
Well, those things we disagree on, first off, usually you and I both see the other viewpoint.
Yeah.
We respect other viewpoints. We've studied the other viewpoint. We know why why people tend to think those views. So we have a respect for that view, because it's not just, and see, that's one of the things I like to tell the listeners is, like, when you disagree with somebody, I strongly recommend understanding where they're coming from. There's all kinds of things that I disagree with. You and I, we've talked about some of the trends that are going on right now.
Right.
The Mandela thing, I looked into it. I'm not convinced at all.
Right.
I see why people are convinced. So I have a respect towards the people of why they think that, but I'm not convinced at all. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. But I don't look down at the people for believing that, because I understand why they have those views.
Right.
Same with the Tartaria mud flood thing. Okay. I disagree with it. Not convinced at all. The millennial reigns already happened. I find that even goofier, but I don't look down at the people, because I understand the points that they're. That's one of the things is, first off, you and I are typically well studied enough in the topics that we disagree on that you can recognize, well, I have an idea of where he's coming from. And that's why you and I will say things like, is it because of this? Yeah. Okay. I thought maybe so. I see where you're coming from. I disagree, but, and let me tell you why, kind of thing. But on top of that, also, number two, the things we disagree on are nowhere near fundamental.
Right. Yeah.
And number three, the spirit of Yah is not going to allow us to have issues over little stupid things to bicker about.
Right.
But on top of all that, Jeff, usually the things that you and I disagree on, we both will admit to ourselves and to each other, I don't know. This is what I think. This is what I think. And this is why I think that. And I strongly think that, but I still don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so drying up of the Euphrates River. We talked about the kings of the East. Right. I like how you said that they might have been princes.
Yeah.
The kings being, I had not thought of that. And Jeff, you could be so spot on with that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That is absolutely brilliant, because it does talk about the leaders and things. And a lot of the scripture and prophecy is looking from the viewpoint of Yah's lenses.
Yeah.
So when he says the kings of the East, it's just like you mentioned when it talks about attacking Israel. And we're reading it today, and how we picture Israel today is different than what would have been read a couple thousand years ago, and so on and so forth. And you could go back another 2,000 years, so on and so forth. But it doesn't matter about what we're viewing as Israel. It matters about the author's view of Israel for that time. And if that definition of that viewpoint differs from our perspective now, then we're already cut off a corner of the puzzle piece. And then we're wondering why
most of the map. We've cut off most of the map.
Yeah. And then try to make it into a sphere. Okay, so I had to do it, Jeff. We talked about kings of the East and the drying up the Euphrates River, but what also is connected to the drying up the Euphrates River in prophecy? Because some of the listeners might not know this one.
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure where you're going with it either. Maybe I know.
Jeff, we talked about this, the prison cells.
Oh, yes, yeah. Go ahead, man. That's good stuff.
Okay, yeah. So what is it? Revelation.
There's some stuff going on right now. But one of the things, and I'll lead in with this, and then you carry on. One of the things that they found, or that they're looking for, as this Euphrates dries up, we're looking for, is it Gen 14, the wars?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
where these giant battles happened, and we're actually going to be looking for some of the remnants of stuff that happened with it. In fact, some people are saying that besides Sodom and Gomorrah, this helped usher in some of the high rich salt content of the area. But go ahead. This is an interesting tidbit with Euphrates drying up, and we know about there's angels, fallen angels that have been. And guys, listen, angel, that's a job title. That's not an actual creature's name. It's not a. I don't know if you've ever taught on that.
That's not right? A name.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's a job title, but these Elohim, right? These Elohim, and I know there's some people that's going to say it should be Elohim, whatever. I'm from Texas, guys. I say Elohim, but yeah. So these are some of these fallen Elohim, some of these fallen spirit beings that are tied up, that are under in these prison cells under the Euphrates. And go ahead, you had something very unique that we talked about.
I'm not convinced that it is the fulfillment, but I find it interesting, and at the very least I think it's preparing. Okay, so I haven't seen anybody really talking about this. There's a couple of YouTube videos out there, and the videos are honestly, in my opinion, kind of garbage. They give you this clickbait title, and then you click on it, and it's like 2 minutes long, and they're not going into depth on anything. They're not teaching or preaching anything. They just give you the verse. And they used to do this in 2014 as well, right? They give you the one verse, and then they show you the image, and they're like, bam, done. And you're just like, whoa, dude, come on. You know what I mean? But anyways, with that being said, it's very interesting. Okay, so I put verses in the chat here. I gave you, it's Revelation 9 as well as Revelation 16, where you see Euphrates being mentioned in Revelation, right? And so you have in 16, you've got the drying up the Euphrates so that the kings of the east can pass through. And
can we just talk about this real quick with Revelation 16? When John penned this in 98 AD, right? He's on the Isle of Patmos. He's receiving this revelation. This was the most preposterous idea that the mighty Euphrates would dry up. I know when people first read this, they're like, poor John, man, we're not even going to consider this scripture. This cannot be inspired. Did you read what he wrote almost towards the end of this letter? He says that he saw a vision of the Euphrates drying up. The guy was obviously not drinking enough water. He wasn't getting enough meat. He wasn't all there. He was in the spirit on the Lord's day, whatever. They thought this guy was nuts when they're reading this. There's no way the Euphrates could dry up. And man, look at it. Bam, this thing it's drying up. But I'm sorry. I just want to kind of set the scene with that.
So in Revelation 9, saying to the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates.
Yeah.
4 angels were loose, which were prepared for an hour, a day, a month, and a year to slay the third part of men. Okay, so there's all kinds of debates, as there is, almost about every verse in the Bible. Right. Jeff, you and I are real familiar with probably the top 300-400 verses that are typically debated by anybody who preaches. And some of the listeners know what I'm talking about, some of them might not, but we reference it a lot. But it's almost like anytime you try to study any topic to actually preach it, and you go listen to other people's input, it becomes very clear right away. You pick any chapter of the Bible, you're going to come across certain verses that has some seriously strong arguments debating the interpretation of that one verse in the chapter, and the implications thereof can change the context of the chapter and your view on so many other things. So it's crazy. So of course, just like all these other verses in the Bible, the top 300-400 that we're aware of, and maybe a couple hundred others that we think are not, and then the thousands that we're not aware of or whatever. There's all kinds of arguments on whether or not this great river Euphrates mentioned in Revelation is what we call the river Euphrates now. There is differing views on that. Sure. I find it kind of silly, but it is an argument, and I've looked at the other side, and I get why people. I have respect to their beliefs and the people, Jeff. I find it silly, and I disagree, and I'm just going to simply say that, okay?
But I do want to say I strongly disagree with it, but I do respect their opinion. How about that?
Right. I get where they're coming from. I do. I understand the map studies and the linguistics and the names, and you start looking into the root of things and this, that, and the other. And it's really hard when you start going from the Greek and the Hebrew, so there's all kinds of lost in translation knowledge.
There's only two mighty
views
rivers.
On things.
There's only two mighty rivers that divide that area up. That's it. Anyway,
I know. Jeff, I know. Don't get me started, okay? Don't get me started. I find it more interesting when people argue about what the other two rivers are. Honestly, I find that more interesting when you start trying to figure out the third and fourth river that's mentioned in Genesis, and you start to try to look at the circulation system of the body. Have you ever seen those studies? They compare the blood flow of the body, and they're comparing it to the four rivers and things like that. That's a topic worth listening to a debate on, in my opinion. But anyways, okay, so I had put that out there, right? That if somebody goes looking into it, they might find a video and they say, well, Ian said the Euphrates River in Revelations 9, but this guy's saying it's not even Euphrates, whatever. Anyways, 4 angels were loosed, right, to slay the men. Okay, so loosed, Jeff, meaning they're imprisoned.
That's right.
Meaning these are probably not your friendly neighborhood angels that you want to come fight for you.
Yeah, these aren't the guardian angels,
battles, right?
These aren't the little fat cherubim guardian angels that we have with wings that are sitting on your grandma's shelf.
Well, in a way, Jeff, they actually are, and that's why you don't want to know them. In a way, if we're gonna talk realistically, the heavenly godly angels look nothing like that, but the fallen angels might come to you as a gray or as a wolf man or as a naked baby cherubim that you have on your doorpost. I don't know. But anyways, with that being said, there are some videos and some information out there showing that, interestingly enough, there has been what seems to be prison cells found at the base of the Euphrates River, and they've been found due to the decreasing levels of Euphrates. So if you go into YouTube or you start looking for the articles, you will find they're not quite sure who built them. They're not quite sure what they were built for, but the general consensus is that they were meant to imprison something. They won't even say people for sure, okay? And depending on what video and article you go to, some will say that there was 4, some will say that there was like 6 to 8. The typically pictured is 4 main great chambers meant to imprison something, and they are now seemingly currently empty. Now, I'm not saying that the 4 angels at the Euphrates River have been loosed. I'm not saying that personally, Jeff, for me, speaking just for me, I don't think we're there yet. I think that there's some things that, even just in Revelation 9 alone, that seem to be based on the context that happened prior to, that I would argue hasn't happened yet. But with that being said, Jeff, time as a concept in the heavenly realm and here is different, right? And not to sound like our friends, it's not to sound like our friends that we very much love but do not care for their beliefs in the millennial reign having already occurred, or the people who believe that it's occurring now. And you and I have already discussed at great lengths about why and how much we want nothing to do with those beliefs. Not the people. We don't mind the people, but the beliefs are something else. Because they'll love that I said time as a concept that's different, right? They'll jump all over and then say, well, now you can't say, no, I still stick to my guns on this. But with that being said, seals could be broken, pop, 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 pop. And then we see the effects like waves. So and the only reason I'm saying that is if those emptied cells, if they're truly empty, because you got to remember, we're seeing physically, if these are spiritual entities, they could still be imprisoned there without us knowing. Is that possible, Jeff? Right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? So we could have found the prison cells. They could be, the river could have dried up for them, but the kings of the east still have to pass through, and they got to pass through and unlock them from the prison cell for all I know. I don't know, right? And they could still be there, and we just don't physically see them. That's why I said seemingly empty, because from a physical viewpoint, there are these dug out hole things. Did you find them? Did you find the images?
No, I couldn't. I was trying to find the images and I couldn't find them. If
you couldn't find them, we better not have taken them down already. People are going to think I'm goofy for saying this.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything. I was trying to find them.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me use my fingers and do some work, Jeff. Apparently.
Wait a minute. Maybe
you find it now?
Hang on. I think I may have found it. Let me. Is this,
you ever look into the Euphrates River fallen angel sounds where they've got the clips of the sounds as well?
Yeah. Is this it right here?
I don't know. Let me look. Yeah, that was one of them. That's one of the ones that I was telling you about. That's like a crappy video. But look at that, Jeff. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can see a fifth one off to the side there. You see how they like to conveniently show you just 4. And then they bring up that verse and they say, ta-da, fulfilled. And that's basically the whole video. It's like 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting. See, look down there. See, look, you can see more right there, right? But, I mean, that doesn't mean that they're not necessarily connected.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying to show a picture of a little bit more entrances to 4 chambers. It could be that. Maybe that's all we're seeing.
There could be all kinds of things here that we're not factoring in, Jeff.
Yeah.
You know, my wife was showing me a Tic Tac. I like to call them Tic Tacs so that people roll their eyes and they think I'm too old for the generations now. You know, I say, I saw on Tic Tac, and then my coworkers laugh at me. But yeah, so this girl on TikTok, she was talking about the arguments of pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, and stuff like that. And you can tell she's just now getting her feet deep into those studies, you know, but the Spirit's showing her some things, man. And she's saying, you know, everybody's arguing about the timing, and yet, and I don't know if you've seen this, but she brought up one thing that made me go, oh, I did not know that. And I stopped and I looked at my wife and I said, the rest of it, I found adorable in the sense of like, oh, she's getting there. Cool. Yeah. Whatever. You know, good for her. And she's reaching people but, you know, I've already gone through that topic so many times. But she said something that made me go, oh, now you have my attention. Okay, so she was talking about the whole harpazo. You know the arguments of the harpazo. Anybody who's argued with pre-tribber or for the side of pre-trib, you know the harpazo word. You know the harpazo arguments. You know the whole snatched up, this, that, and the other. Okay, now, Jeff, have you ever compared that to the other experiences in Scripture talking about people getting yanked up, like Elijah and Yeshua ascending? Have you ever compared the actual words? Yeah. Because there's only one time that we get the same language as harpazo. And it's not Yeshua ascending, and it's not Elijah going up in a whirlwind. One time.
What's that? Stephen.
When you have the baptism and he disappears and goes to another location.
Yeah.
Or translation. Philip. Sorry.
Philip. Yeah, I got.
He does a baptism. And as soon as the eunuch from Ethiopia comes up out of the water, he gets harpazo, snatched up.
20 miles away, he's gone.
And he's dropped off in another physical location. So now, of course, this is a new concept to the girl because she's saying, well, wait, what if this whole rapture argument isn't about going up into the heavens, but rather being relocated, right? Now, that's not a new concept for me, but having that word study is. So, of course, I went into the comments and I said, connect your Matthew 24 to, what is it, Zechariah 14 and 12 and things like that. You see the splitting of the Mount of Olives, and you see Yeshua bringing them to the Mount of Olives.
So are you tying this in with the second Exodus?
I'm just bringing up the harpazo word study. I'm letting the listener connect dots as they see fit. I'm just saying, if you look at the splitting, if you look at the splitting of the Mount of Olives,
did you see that I'm on the edge of my seat and I've come closer?
If what is it, Zechariah 12 or 14, where it talks about the splitting of the Mount of Olives, and it's got east to west, right? And it's funny because you have like that whole valley of decision, valley of judgment. You have the 2 mounts. Yeah. And you've got the blessings and the cursings. You've got the goats and the lambs. That's what the picture I'm getting with the split. Wow. But with that, you would have, so you have the Thessalonian verses and Matthew 24 verses. Right. Matthew 24 clearly says, after the tribulation of those days. And then the pre-tribber says, oh, but it has to be great tribulation. And it's like, okay, dude, first off, the etymology of the word tribulation is talking about beating unwanted particles off of the wheat. The wheat is getting beaten, but beyond that, okay? Anyhow, with all of that being said, right, we have the Thessalonian verses, right? It says you meet him in the air and you become as he is, for you see him as he is. right? Thessalonians also tells us last trump, like 1 Corinthians 15, last
And that's
trump.
not talking about Donald.
Jeff, people argue that. They argue the Trump family or the Trumps mention that because they refuse to accept that the trumpet in Revelation could have anything to do with the last trump of 1 Corinthians 15, because there's no way they're going to wait till the last trumpet.
Now, brother, don't you know that everything is focused on America? Don't you know it's all about America all the time? I mean, where's your patriotic spiritualism, brother? Come on now.
Yeah, of course. Oh, geez. Okay, so look, man. It says you meet him in the air.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And for anybody who's pre-trib, I don't think most of our listeners are going to be pre-trib, but in the off chance, and I'm not trying to offend anybody or anything like that, but meeting him in the air doesn't necessarily mean like you've gone up to heaven and things like this. Okay, you consider in Revelation talks about a new heaven on a new earth. So if you've got a recreating and things like that down here, then why are you going up anyhow? Except for to meet him in the air, as he's coming down. Yeah. So that's a relocation.
That's
a relocation.
I've never considered that, and that is, I like that.
Yeah,
that's good.
Mount Olives, baby. I'm telling you, she was like, "Is it possible we're relocating?" Okay. I told my wife, I said, "Go in the comments and write Mount Olives. That has to be."
So it talks about the second Exodus would be so awesome that we would talk about that for eternity. We would almost forget about the first Exodus. Can you imagine this snatching away of us all, boom, meeting right up at the Mount of Olives? That's pretty cool.
Well, I've imagined it was going to be meeting the Mount of Olives for 8-9 years.
Well, no, I've been thinking of that, but I was thinking, okay, how are we all going to get there?
Oh, you were thinking of traveling.
Are we going to? Or is God going to split the Atlantic Ocean for all of us in America? And we're going down the trenches, and we're walking.
So this saves you the whole trip.
Yeah, no, this is. Oh, I like that.
So you're liking this better.
I'm all for it now, man. Let's go.
Are you saying that this theology is convenient? Is that what you're saying? Because now that sounds like a pre-trib argument. That's the thing that drives me nuts about the pre-trib, right? You go in there and you go to debate with them, and like I have a heart for them. I do, which is probably one of the reasons why, just like Catholicism, pre-trib is one of the topics that I have fought harder than most other topics. Anti-pre-trib, anti-Catholic doctrine, not the people. We're talking about beliefs. I'm anti the beliefs, and I attack them strongly, Jeff. I have fought pre-trib for almost a decade now.
Sure.
And because I see it as a false hope, a false sense of security, and I have seen growing up what happens with that. I've seen it in others. I've seen it in churchianity. What happens when you have a false sense of security and you have false hope? Just like I've seen the issues of false corrections. There's a lot of problems with this, and they'll say things like, "Well, it's the blessed hope," and I go, you think that's the hope that Scripture talks about? Is you getting yanked up before things get hard? That's the blessed hope you think they're talking about? When it says the blessed hope in Yeshua, you think it's being yanked up. So now not only have you replaced, even though I'm the one with replacement theology, believing in TO, they're the ones replacing Israel with the new church, who is going to get yanked up before things get bad, even though all throughout the Bible, it's always been everything but. It's always been enduring. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, with all of that, the thing that drives me nuts, you go to argue with them and they say, well, you can stay here if you want, but I'm getting yanked up. And I say, if I want, who says this is my beliefs have anything to do with what I want them to be?
Right.
You know what I mean? That drives me nuts when they say that. Or when they say, you can believe in post-trib if you want, but I'm going to go up with him. So as to say, if you don't believe in the correct timing, you don't get to be a part of it. Which again, and that's usually my text for the pre-trib. I say, hold on, what makes you think that I have to believe in the correct timing in order to be a part of it? Show me that verse. I'm not going to even ask you to show me the pre-trib verse, because we're going to go down the arguments that I've already done hundreds of thousands of times. I've got a new argument. I want to understand this one. What makes me, okay, I'm sorry, I had to say that. But anyways, I thought you'd enjoy the whole harpazo thing.
No, and I hadn't considered that with Philip being translated. That's fascinating. I'd
never looked at that, Jeff. That's why I said I sat up and I looked at my wife and I said, "Oh, newbie's got a piece I've never heard of. That's a puzzle. And that's the thing about God. And that's the amazing thing. Brand new out the gate, elder, and everywhere in between. You can receive a piece that everybody else would think they might have because they've already walked down that road or whatever. This is why you got to listen in. This is why I got to listen in to somebody who's brand new, born again, as well as the elder. You know, you have to.
Apostle Paul said we all know in part and we all prophesy in part. And man, that is something to really pay attention to. And just because you've been in ministry for years, I've been in ministry since I was 17. I've been in ministry for over 35 years. Yeah. And I am still humble enough to say, hey, I don't know. I used to think I knew some of these things, man. I used to preach pre-trib inside and out. I could you'd think I was Hal Lindsey, you know? And then that was actually, I don't know if we've ever talked about that. That was the first thing that Yah began to correct my theology on was pre-trib rapture. I was doing a little evangelistic tour, a little revivalist tour type thing, and that was one of the things I used to preach on. And I was getting ready to preach on that at a revival. And I had my notes, man. I was ready to, I had my whole little rabbit trail, went down through. I was ready to hop down through that. And God spoke to me, not in an audible voice, but a very strong voice on the inside and said, why are you going to preach that? And I said, well, because this is your word. He said, is it? And man, if you hear that on the inside and you don't immediately say, whoa.
And it's not you. You're like,
yeah.
I no longer want to go on stage.
So, and I was about to go up and minister. So I just ministered on something else. And I took that, and this is what we need to do as believers. I took that and I put it on the shelf. Yeah. I took that piece of theology and I stopped ministering on it, and I put it on the shelf till I could actually start studying it out, and made myself, it was just like when I came to TO. It was just like when I got spirit filled. It's just like all these other things that there's so much controversy on. If you take a step back and say, you know what, maybe the stuff that I've heard is wrong, and Father, speak to me. Holy Spirit, teach me, lead me, guide me. That doesn't mean that you're not going to listen to other ministers and other viewpoints and other, you do that. You look at things, you study things out, and man, be open that you could possibly be wrong. Even if you think that you are right about this is I know that I'm right. You could still be wrong. We again, I circle back to this, the Pharisees. We point our fingers at the Pharisees so hard. Man, they believed in what they were doing. They really thought they were right. The Zealots, they really thought they were right. They thought that the Messiah, that term to them also had connotations of king. There's one part of the scripture where it talks about that Yeshua had to leave because he knew they were going to try to force him to be king. And he's like, that's not what I'm here to do right now. I'm coming back for that, but that's not what I'm here to do right now.
What that meant.
Yeah. And so,
well, I mean, they were on a Roman siege, man. They wanted out from underneath that thumb so bad, and you can't blame them. You know what I mean? In the physical, you can't blame them. They just weren't comprehending the mission that Yeshua was on. They were not understanding the view, the perspective. The battles Yeshua was battling was not the ones that they wanted him to battle. Sorry, I had to add to all of that, but no, it's good stuff. You're right. I like how you talked about the whole shelving it, because I saw somebody, one of the guys that I have on my Facebook newsfeed, and this is why I get bummed out when sometimes people get rid of me because I disagree with them on something. Yeah. Because Jeff, I have friends that disagree with me on like every belief that I have that has an opposing view. I have a handful of friends, at least on Facebook, that are strong on the opposing view on one of those things. Sure. Yeah. Every single one, Jeff, and I like them. Yeah. I've got pre-trib people I like, and they will fight hard on pre-trib, and I don't bother with them anymore because they know if I want to talk, if they want to talk to me about it, they'll talk to me about it, but they don't want to talk to me about it. So guess what? I'm going to enjoy their posts that have to do with other stuff because that's not the only thing they bring to the table.
Amen.
That's not the only thing they post about. You know what I mean? And they've got other stuff that I find genuine and brilliant. And there's stuff they post about, even sometimes basic meaty stuff, but it convicts me. And I'm like, crap, I really needed to see that today. I'm really angry at myself that I had to see that. But I'm glad that I kept them as a friend because I got to see that.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So anyways, one of my friends that I really know of him as that, because he's a smart guy and he's a TO guy, but he also disagrees with me on like 2 or 3 things that I don't know if he knows that I disagree with him on it because I'm not on his radar. He's on my radar. Okay?
Right.
He added me. I don't think he knows anything about me, and that's fine. Right. But if he knew where I sat on certain topics, I think he'd delete me. And that'd be a real bummer because he posts some solid stuff. And the other day he posted something about how believers need to shelf things. And I almost forwarded it because 99% of that post was solid, but I heard not to because of this one statement implies things that he believes that I don't. And I don't mind posting that. Sometimes I'll do that. And then if people say, I didn't think you did. I don't, but I'm posting it for the rest of it. But I heard not to. And I think it's because people weren't going to ask me. They were going to assume that that was my view and run with it. And it's not good. But anyways, he was talking about that, about shelving things. And he was saying that he really wished a lot of people would shelf it when they start to question what they think are contradictions involving Paul and Torah and stuff like that. Instead of just taking it and running with it, he really wished they would just shelve it, you know, and that whole understanding of if you're not receiving the full revelation, put it on the shelf, take 10 steps back, like you said, ask the Father. And here's the thing, Jeff, and I've mentioned this in the video before. Some of the listeners probably have heard me say it a couple times, but it might not be the puzzle piece for you to receive right now. And if you're seeking his will and not your own, what the crap do you care if Paul or TO or clean foods or Shabbat timing, sundown to sunset or yada yada or Trinitarian units? What do you care? What the crap do you care if that's not what he wants to work on you about right now? You know what I mean? If it's about his will and not our own, we shouldn't give a crap about whether or not we have to shelve this for a minute. So if we don't know, Jeff, even if we think we know, you start all of a sudden you see the person where that's all they post nonstop, and they come into videos like this and they get in the chat room and that's all they post about. That's all they comment about. We're talking about whatever, and they bring up that one topic. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but they don't care.
And they can't get off of it.
They can't, right? Yeah. And they don't see it and they don't realize it. And the concept of maybe I've taken a puzzle piece that I shouldn't have even taken doesn't belong to the puzzle. Yeah. And I've ran so hard with it that I never even took 10 steps back, let alone considered shelving it to make sure I got it right.
Or they don't understand that a lot of people come to the scripture with a Greek mindset. It is either this screen right here or how do we do it? That screen over there, right? It's one or the other. Mm. When the Hebrew mindset says that even if they look like they're contradictory, it can still be both. Mm. And that blows. I still struggle with that mindset, but I'm coming to a place where I can accept that mindset. Where let me just hit a really, the third rail on the third rail you're not supposed to hit. Let's just say Trinitarian versus Unitarian. Okay. I see that again, like you talk about, we have studied these things backwards and forwards and upside down and inside and out. I have studied these things for more years than some people have been in as a believer, right? I can see both sides. And I'm to a place where I can see that it's both. If that can make sense to you. I can see where that we have one God. He is Echad. We understand that Echad means one. It also means unity. We can go into all kinds of things with that.
Yeah.
But okay, I can see one, right? Mm-hmm. But I can also see scriptures that talk about that God recognized that he had a son way back in the Old Testament. And it says, who's his son's name? We see writings from the rabbis. They accepted that there were two powers in heaven, but they also accepted that they were one. And so in our Greek way of thinking, we think, it's got to be one or the other. And if it's this one over here, you're going to hell because you believe this other way. No. we have a little peanut thing here that's grabbing this little human mind, and we're trying to understand the Godhead. We're trying to understand Jehovah.
Yeah, the heart. Yeah, I know it, Jeff. I know.
And listen, get over you thinking that you're totally right, and understand that it can be both at the same time. He is one, but he's also more. When he opened his mouth at creation, which isn't Genesis 1:3, those are not the first words that God spoke. Those are the first words that we have recorded. The first words that he spoke is what we see happening in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, Bereshit, in the beginning, God created the heavens. That is Hashemayim. In King James only, people, you got it wrong there because it says heaven in the King James. I'm sorry, brother. That's Hashemayim. It says he created the heavens and the earth. That's not a generalized statement. And then we see how that happened in verse 2 all the way down. I don't want to get that whole teaching, but there we see some things going on. I could get off really fast on that. That's a big topic for me.
Okay. Yeah, I know it is. I know. Okay, so April in the chat a long time ago, almost an hour ago, asked who the king of the north and south is in Daniel. And I didn't want to hit on all these things. I just wanted to acknowledge that I saw the question. Like I said, she has some hard questions. So interesting thing about the differing views of the kings of the north and south in Daniel, right? You're looking at chapters like 7 and on, but more specifically like 10, 11, 12, when you're looking at the kings of the north and the south. And I've studied this specifically myself. I used to talk about this a lot. And I didn't come out with I have the answer. It was constantly looking at all the different views going, oh, this is interesting. Oh, but this view is interesting too. And what if it's this instead of this and all those other things? So for anybody who's not familiar, who's looked at that and wondered, there's also views of that actually already being done.
Right.
And those views I used to think were goofy, but man, the more I look at those views on those certain parts of I mean, they fit a lot more. Let's just put it this way, Jeff. In my opinion, they fit 1,000 times better than saying that the book of Revelation's already happened. Okay.
Yeah.
In my opinion, okay.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Jeff, the possibility of the king of the north and south in Daniel having already happened.
Yeah.
It's actually possible.
Yeah.
So that's one of the arguments when trying to pinpoint that. And that's worth looking at. When in prophecy does Gog and Magog war happen? I see what I'm saying. She asked some hard questions. This is debated by everybody who looks at those things. They all have different answers. I mean, some will argue that Gog and Magog isn't even two individuals, but one's an individual and one's a location. Others will argue, I've seen it, Jeff. I've seen so many different arguments on this, and they come at it with such well-versed knowledge and understanding of things.
Can we just say that Eusebius was one of the first guys that kind of forced his theology and twisted some scriptures, and this is way back in 400 AD. So like about 400 AD. He's he's saying, hey, this is Yeshua had this last week in Daniel. This is all the stuff going on, and this is what I think. I'm gonna insert my opinion and try to find scriptures to back that up, guys. That's not the way you do study. You don't come with an opinion and try to find scriptures to back that up. You look at the scriptures and try to see. That's eisegesis, not exegesis. Not
right,
say
Jeff,
exegesis. Yeah.
That's how scientists today work.
Yeah.
They've even had students that came out saying, that's why they left the medical field and that's why they left science, because they went in there. Now, science itself, the concept of science is not a bad thing. It's what the secular world often calls science, which is nonsense and a religion, and it's constantly circular reasoning and theories based on nothing except for their own theories. And a lot of the times they do. They come at it with a hypothesis, and then they try to prove it, rather than just simply looking at what there is in front of them and trying to surmise what they can out of the proof. They do it backwards. So, of course, we see people do that with doctrine. Now, I'm not attacking the people in chat or anything like that. I just wanted to make it clear that the questions of when is Gog and Magog, I mean, there's so many arguments of who it is, what it is. And when you look at when, One of my favorite viewpoints was from Aaron Nelson, a guy that used to be part of my DNG 144 crew for when I started opening up the DNG 144 mysteries on Facebook. He was one of two guys that I had on there posting with me. And he kept coming at it with Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38, and certain parts of Revelation being simultaneous. And he was saying that they were all being recorded and viewed and perceived from different angles. So as to say, if we have a nuke going on in New York right now, meanwhile, the Hoover Dam and the Southwest burst, if you have two different chapters and two different books describing the events, as the reader outside the event, we're thinking, okay, which one will happen first? But they happen simultaneously.
Yeah.
So timing of Gog Magog, I mean, the best we can say is odds are end times. Yeah. But even that is debated.
Well, okay, so timing. Let's talk about timing. People try to fit their understanding of timing into what they're seeing instead of what they're seeing into the facts. That's like Jericho. I'm jumping all around. I know. We have archaeological evidence that Jericho had this massive wall. We have archaeological evidence that the wall fell a certain way.
Yeah, I was going to say, it made a ramp. It made a ramp, stuff. How freaking cool is that? I'm sorry, out of the whole Jericho study, you got the shape of the foot and you got the giants and all this other stuff. The coolest thing, in my opinion, is it made a ramp. Not only did the walls fall, but the Israelites could literally march into the city.
Walk up.
It became a ramp.
And there's a part of the wall that survived. One part of the wall survived, and it had an apartment in it.
At the top. Yeah.
There was one family that was saved. And why were they saved? Because they helped the Hebrew spies that came in. I mean, all these things fit. But when the archaeologists went to there and they're looking at it, this doesn't fit the timeline because the children of Israel shouldn't have been there at this time. So if that's the case,
at with what they've already accepted.
Yeah, and instead of saying, "Hey, my timeline's wrong," the evidence supports the Bible. Oh, well, the Bible's foolish. It doesn't make any sense.
Because they've already accepted that the Bible can't be true. So they're not going like Patterns Evidence Crew, but even if outside of that, you start looking into any stuff. The moment you listen to the secular archaeologists, doctors, scientists, etc., it's the same thing over and over again. The moment you have a believer ask them a question, well, can this be proof of a flood instead? They laugh. They literally laugh, Jeff. And then they look at you and they find an extremely articulate, intelligent, but snobbish and looking down on you with a condescending tone attitude of, well, that simply cannot be. And then they'll go on to explain why, but it's always hinged on the pinpoint of based on something they've already accepted to be true, which is theory, and that the Bible is completely nonsense.
Yeah, they say that there had to be 2 or 3 million different species of animals in the ark. No.
And we'll see. Okay, but the Ark Encounter in Kentucky does a brilliant job on that. And for anybody who hasn't been, amazing place. They do an awesome job. And on top of that, if you want to do a Noah study sometime, because I thought about doing such a big Noah study that I was going to try to get a group together. I was going to do a video series and then have them watch the Trey Smith Noah video and then go to the Ark, because that's one of my favorite topics. And you can't hit the topic of the flood in 1 or 2 videos. You really can't. I mean, you got to treat it kind of like like an average church when they have like the men's seminars and they spend all year on it and then they do a trip. You kind of have to do it like that.
We spent 1 day at the Ark Encounter. That's what the 10's for. We spent 1 day at the Ark Encounter, and man, we could have spent a week.
Oh yeah, my family's been 4 or 5 times now, and we're going to tell you now, if you're not going to be there for at least 3 hours, do not go, because you're going to need at least 3 hours, and that's just first time visit. You know, and now my wife and I, we've gone 4 or 5 times. We know that we can run through that thing in about 3.5 hours and see what we want to see. But we've also seen everything. Literally, we've seen everything there is to see there. But anyways, okay. So I want to start wrapping it up here. My headache's trying to get to me, and it's late, and I hang out with my wife and stuff. But you said you wanted to talk about this.
Oh yeah. Let me see if I can find a video on that. Hang on a second. I forgot we want to talk about that.
Because there's all kinds of stuff going on with that. I've been seeing a lot of people getting divorced lately in the body. I've been seeing a lot of people getting dreams, Jeff. I had one of the listeners contact me, and I haven't said much about this, but I had one of the listeners contact me talking about they had a dream with me, Reynolds, and Joel Burton in it. in Kansas and the pulling down of strongholds in Kansas and stuff like that.
Wow.
People are having some interesting dreams right now. I'm not saying there's anything to that dream or anything like that. I'm just saying there's a pattern in the body I've noticed the past couple of weeks. There's a lot of divorces going on. And I've also seen a lot of dreams. Whether or not they're of God, I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying I find it interesting patterns. I like when I go through my news feed every day for a couple of weeks and I notice, man, everybody is talking about Revelations 9. Everybody's talking about Revelation 16. Why is everybody talking about these chapters? They don't even see the Euphrates drying up, but they're talking about those 2 chapters non-stop the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, bring it up.
Check this out. I want to keep the sound. Yeah. I got to keep the sound down so we don't get a violation. Yeah. But guys, this is the opening of the Commonwealth 2022 opening ceremony over in England. And they are.
Hey, did you listen to their intro before they did this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you? Where they talked? They referred to it as the Tower of Babel, Jeff.
Yes. Look at these. They are bowing down. They're bowing down and worshiping this bull, guys. This is Baal worship.
No, it's a halftime show. It doesn't mean anything, Jeff. Just because you see a bunch of children on hospital beds a couple of years before it actually happens, and they have a big puppet thing going across the stadium as death with a sickle like a Grim Reaper, it means nothing because it's a halftime show. It's just entertainment, Jeff. Have you ever seen the opening of the tunnel ceremony?
Yeah.
With CERN? It means nothing, Jeff, that they show a portal and they're letting demons and entities through. It doesn't mean anything that they're bowing down to a cow, Jeff. It doesn't mean anything. They're just eclectically showing you unison and peace are wonderful things. That's all they're doing.
It doesn't mean anything when the Satanist, former Christian Katy Perry comes in riding on a beast.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it doesn't.
Come
on.
It
doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything that Beyonce has been pictured with a red horse, a white horse, a pale horse, and a black horse, and 4 different photo shoots. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, they're all doing. I'm gonna get in trouble. They're all doing the eye thing. Yeah, they're all doing all the Illuminati. Somebody's gonna take a screenshot. Say, jumps into Illuminati.
The knocking tongue. What's his face called it?
Yeah, they're doing all this stuff, guys, and it is right in your face. And how many believers are actively watching all of this stuff, and they are literally doing witchcraft on you, and you're receiving it into your homes. Oh,
yeah,
it's rough.
Well,
brother.
Jeff, I told you I wanted to do an As in the Days of Noah. I don't know, willing, what's going to be going on. I haven't done a video in like 7 weeks. I don't know. I know I want to do John the Baptist with dirt real bad. I'd like to, I don't have to, but I'd like to do an As in the Days of Noah / As in the Days of Lot stuff. But another video I've wanted to do with you, and I haven't told you this, but I would really like doing, even if it's a 2-parter, because of the way you and I talk forever. I don't know how these people listen to us. We get on here and it's like when we're on the phone. I don't know how they deal with it. Our wives wouldn't want to listen to us this long. I would like to do a Genesis 11 with you, and I'd like to. Okay, we might have some listeners who don't like this. I have a person specifically in mind. I don't see them in here tonight, but then again, they never show when they're listening. I'd like to look at Genesis 11.
Yep.
You and I can talk about stuff that we may or may not agree with about what we believe about then.
Yep.
Compared to modern day, like CERN, LHC, NASA. Yep. Okay, Jeff. I'd like to do that. I'd like to title it something like Modern Day Tower of Babel, and on one side have CERN, and then underneath it the Stargate portal thing that looks exactly like it, or maybe one of the Mayan portal maps that looks exactly like it, and then over here maybe have a tower, and then in between that maybe have Apollo next to it, the rocket, with
wow.
I'm just saying, Jeff, I'd like to do that because I think that'd be a fun study. Okay, I'm just going through the chat on everything I've missed in the past hour. Egyptians have had all kinds of hybrids in their paintings. It was more common the further back we go, for sure. Jeff and I, off the record, talk about all the time about the lion men of Moab, the dog men, all kinds of stuff that's in Scripture. People don't even realize are in Scripture and elsewhere. Speaking of Egyptians' paintings, they have hieroglyphs of giants carrying 2-ton stones to build pyramids and the likes. That's actually in the hieroglyphs.
Yeah.
And they, oh, well, that just shows that they were important people, even though it shows them carrying the stones and then building the pyramids with it. And we know that those stones are 1 to 2 tons.
Brother,
and right next to those giant
that's just symbolic. That's just symbolic. Come on now.
It is
They
symbolic.
they had all the Israelis, you know, they had slaves, and they had all these
Right.
massive ropes, and they had all these pulleys, and they had
Right.
cranes back then, and they
Right. And they yeah, I know. Oh, don't even get me started on the math and the engineering and how it's not possible that they didn't use a pulley system to pull those stones with the people. And don't get me started on the math on that, Jeff, because I looked
they had these giant hemp
ropes,
ropes, brother, that somehow 3,000 people were pulling on at the same time.
Don't get me.
They had enough length to go up these ramps, brother, to pull that, and they made corners. And they come on, don't you know?
Okay. So Jeff, don't even get me started. And you can't even fit a piece of hair or a blade of grass between them, and we can't even do that today, let alone laser technology. Don't get me going on Baalbek of Lebanon and all the megalithic. Don't get me started on this crap, okay?
Yeah.
Don't, because then I'm gonna start talking about some weird theories about how they did that, okay? And we're not gonna do that tonight. But
we could start a new show right now, brother. Come on.
I know. You and I could start some of the shows. It's not even funny. But have you looked into the stone softening method?
Yeah.
Have you looked into that theory?
Yeah, I've looked into it where they
see a marshmallow. That's weird. And that's crazy if that's real.
I've looked into that, and that fits so well, like things in Machu Picchu.
When you have those 1-ton stones and they're weirdly shaped, and the next one fits it perfect.
Yeah, and it's kind of poofy.
How?
It's kind of poofy.
How?
Poofy. That's a geological term. Poofy.
It is. It's a very precise scientific term. Poofy. I like that. It reminds me of that TikTok girl who was always making videos of her boyfriend from Italy, her fiance from Italy. Have you seen that? She's always laughing at him, and she'll be like, "Say it again," because she turns on the camera, and he's like, "I want to get the poofed sugar," and she's like, "You want to do what now?" He was talking about cotton candy. And he's like, "The sugar, it's poofy." He's from Italy. He doesn't know that. Oh, I love watching those. Anyways, yeah, my wife gets me on stupid stuff. So those giants carrying the 1-ton stones, and shows them carrying them to the pyramids and other megalithic structures. By the way, I'm not connecting dots for no reason. They literally physically show them in the hieroglyphs.
Right.
And they have people the size of grasshoppers compared to them, next to them, carrying bales of hay and wheat, something a normal sized person, but they're just not as important. Okay.
Yeah, that's showing the scale of their importance, brother. Aren't you educated enough to know that? Come on.
Yes, I know. It's just to show, just like the throne statues and the carvings into the stone and wood and stuff like that, where they show the giants in thrones and then people next to them are really small. I understand it's all about stature. I get it.
How come we've never found these headdresses of people that wore the Numus?
You're doing this on purpose. Because I brought that up to you before. what was that? Did we bring that up in Exodus? The headdresses?
I think so. I think we did.
Yeah.
In the how many hours did we do on Exodus? How many was it? 25, 26 hours we did on Exodus? 1 through 14?
I don't know. I don't know, dude.
Yeah,
it was like it was basically not sleeping or eating for like 2 months straight. We were crazy, Jeff. You were doing your show on the side. I was doing my show on the side. We're doing Esther and Jonah and all this other stuff simultaneously. Sometimes I think we're not right in the head. But some of those were our best videos.
I love them, man.
Jonah and Esther and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you guys haven't watched those videos, go back and watch our Exodus videos. Go watch Jonah and Esther. We tied Jonah and Esther together.
Yeah, I know. That's outstanding, dude.
Woo!
Okay, I would love the Esther videos. I think they might be some of my favorites. And the Jonah, dude, I still want to do the T-shirt, and I don't want to say it out loud anymore in videos because I'm expecting somebody else to steal it. Because I've had people steal ideas.
Yeah,
and I'm not mad at them. I give it up, whatever. But I'd really like to make a shirt, and then somebody else can profit off it because I'm really bad at selling T-shirts. But I want to make the shirt first. And you know what I'm talking about. And if I make it, dude, I gotta get you one too. Because in my head, if I can get somebody to draw it up. Yeah, it's too cool, dude. It's like heavy metal punk. I don't even like heavy metal. I never have.
Yeah,
but it has that cool vibe to it.
It does.
Hey, have you noticed? Have you been seeing the trend of people posting about how do I say this? Open sores, lesions, sometimes called monkeypox, sometimes called polio. Have you seen this? The trend of this going on lately, and it being tied to 2 different things.
Yes.
Including.
Yes.
Okay, have you seen the videos of the people freaking out and testifying and doing testimonies coming out saying that they didn't, but their spouse did, and because of that, they, through sexual contact between the two spouses,
Yep.
have effects from it because the one had this and the other one did not. Have you seen this?
Yep.
This has been,
I've seen that.
dude. I've been seeing nonstop for the past couple of weeks. I'm like, yo, we're
I've
gonna start
also-
seeing people stretching like heroin addicts because they got too many booster
I've
shots.
also seen what's obviously people that have been paid to go on social media platforms and speak in fear about things that have to do with monkeys and chickens. Can we just say it like that?
Yeah, they've been saying that for a little bit now, though. That's nothing new.
Yeah,
you know, they said it was going to come out like polio things 2 years ago. They outright said that. I've got a video on that. But anyways,
okay. Hey, how about this? Back to New York. They found polio virus in the sewage water.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to get to. Okay, they're arguing that
another thing in New York, they have an ad by the mayor telling people to drink tap water.
Yeah,
you seen that?
No, I did not.
And all through the ad on the guy telling people to drink the tap water, he never drinks any of the tap water.
Of course not. Why would he? He knows better. It's just like
better.
The people who were constantly, when they were first doing this and they were trying to get everybody to do it, and people were putting images on their Facebook saying that they got it, just like I voted,
and they didn't get it
or some crap. Yeah, and you see the people on the camera, and you see that the thing's not actually pushing in, or there's nothing in the needle, or doctor or whatever said his arm hurt, but it wasn't even the one that was shown.
Or was it the first nurse that got it? Falls over right there. Remember that?
Jeff, there was
Come on.
ones of those. Yeah.
Come on.
What in the world, Jeff?
What in the world?
Here's the thing, Jeff. You and I, we talk about this and we laugh about it, and the listeners are sitting there. But like, if we were to compile everything, I mean, the ups and downs, the no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, in their own narrative.
In their own narrative.
No lockdown, lockdown, no lockdown, arrows in the grocery store.
No mask. Right. 6 masks. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah. Multiple ones. Okay. In 2020, when they first started with this nonsense, and I don't know if I told you this, but, I gave a warning before it happened, and it wasn't some prophetic word that I got from God. I had been told by people things were coming. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew a couple months in advance things were coming down. But in March, April, and Samson, if he's still in, might be able to back this. I had told Samson and Chadwick, and I think I'd said it in a video, that I had prayed on. I don't know if I told you this, but I had prayed on back in spring of 2020 how to view it through God's view. And I kept getting Joseph and the 7 good years and 7 bad years.
Right.
And I've said it in a couple of videos now that since then, I think I might even said it the first time back in spring of 2020, that I couldn't help but wonder if the 7 and 7 were a reference of 3.5 and 3.5 instead of 7 and 7. And that would put us at 3.5 from spring of 2020 would put us in fall around Sukkot time next year. And we're starting to look at famines and pestilences, Jeff.
Wow.
Spring of 2020, Jeff, people are running around for toilet paper. And my wife and I go to Walmart and a couple other places because we frequented those places back then more than we do now.
Mm-hmm.
And they had caution tape around aisles full of stuff that they said was not for sale.
Yeah.
I don't remember people talking about that. Okay.
Yeah.
The other day, my wife ordered a pickup from Myers or something like that.
Yeah.
And in the thing was bananas, and you give $4 to the driver who comes and drops it off at the house. I'm at work and her car is kaput, which is a whole nother story. But the car that we just got here a year and a half ago, the nicest car her and I have ever owned since we've been together for the past 12, 13 years. It's no longer. So our household's going through some things right now. Yeah. And so the driver tells her, it won't let me ring up the bananas. And my wife said, what do you mean? They said, well, they're here. They're in my hand, but they're telling us you're not allowed to buy bananas. So when you tell me that you went from store to store looking for basic things and you can't find it, Jeff, I'm sitting there going, for the past 2.5 years, my wife and I are constantly coming across these weird things. You know how many times since we've moved to Ohio, that my wife would have orders made and people would drop it off at the door, and they would supplement things, say, well, we couldn't find this. They no longer have this.
Yeah.
So we brought you this. And more often than not, which is why I kept telling my wife to stop doing it, because you're paying them $4 to drive it to the house when you have your own car. I'm very, let's say, penny pinching. Let's try not to offend tonight. We've already said so many offensive things, right? You know my joke that I like to say about that, and I do have the blood to say it. But anyhow, they would bring things that were unclean in replacement. Sometimes the replacement wouldn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Jeff, I've seen it where my wife ordered something like, Vicks Vapor Rub. I can't remember what it was, but let's say it was that, and they brought suntan lotion instead or something. I can't remember what it was, but there was times where she asked for food and they brought non-food items and vice versa. Wow. We don't have that anymore.
Well, let me tell you, this is not off of some kind of internet conspiracy theory. This is from Thus Seeth Jeff. We've got three different cities, 3 different Walmarts in this area. And each one of them, the aisles are getting wider, and there's less shelves. There's less rows of shelves. There's less items.
It's almost like they're preparing for a FEMA camp.
Yes. Yeah.
It almost seemingly seems like maybe the Walmarts that are connected to all kinds of cults and things. It's not just your Illuminati elite stuff. If you go, there's some Mormon connections and some. Yes. It's not even just Mormon. It's like cult within Mormon. That guy back in the day that was caught for doing all the crazy stuff.
Right.
He's connected to the ownership of Walmart and Amazon and stuff like that. So buying these things have actually been helping a guy who child traffics, sex traffics, doesn't even adhere to their own rules that he puts these people in for cults, and they get punished for not doing them and stuff like that.
Right.
And they're going without and giving all their money to him, and they've been doing this for decades. I mean, it's just okay. Like me, do you see this about DJ Sampson here? What he said about the water and borders? I thought you'd find that interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I definitely like that. I would really like to do that show on Gen 11 with you. I've got so much stuff on Gen 11, dude. I'm down for that.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm tapping out, dude. But what in the world, man? You know what I mean?
Hey,
we didn't even talk about Turkey and its mountain of gold and the Islamic prophecies that are seemingly being fulfilled.
Okay, we've got to do a part 2 of what in the world. We got to do another one of these. We got to do a part 2. We didn't even get to Turkey.
Turkey and Iran, Turkey and Iran and Syria and
that was
China
the thing. I was thinking
Turkey.
That's what we were mainly going to talk about tonight was Turkey.
And Turkey. I'm always bringing up Turkey. I brought up Turkey with Schaefer talking to Krieger, and they talked about a couple of things, but it seemed to me that Krieger didn't think Turkey had as much of a role. I don't know, man.
I do, brother.
I told you I'm Armenian and Assyrian. My family, my people are from Iran, Iraq, Armenia, and Israel. That is most of my blood is from those 4 countries. And so maybe that's part of the reason why Turkey's on my radar so much. But Turkey's a very interesting place.
I've got
4
or 5 more things that I want to talk about.
The seat of Satan, or the mountains of Ararat and the Ark of Noah that was for Armenia but is now in Turkey. Or you're looking at the Golden Mountain, the Islamic prophecies, Erdogan.
So much, brother. One of the things I wanted to talk about tonight that we didn't get to, and we're not. I wanted to talk about the Ukraine and how Russia is doing a grab for a nuclear power plant. And just say, nope, that's ours now. We're going to, and they're chopping the lines to the Ukraine and taking them over to Crimea. There's so many things we want to talk. I didn't get to talk about the Bigfoot. I wanted to talk about Bigfoot tonight. We wanted to talk about Turkey.
I know
we're gonna have to do a What in the World Part 2, brother. I'm down for that. Can we commit tonight? Can we do that? Come on, I'm making you commit, brother.
We'll talk, okay, Jeff? We'll talk. I am glad you pushed for things, though. Because
man.
Even tonight, and I took forever to tell you to confirm on whether or not, and I was honestly sitting there going, I don't know, because I didn't really feel up to it. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, I had the headache and stuff like that. But I've been been getting convicted of not doing stuff.
I'm so glad you did, man. I have missed you. I have really missed being on air with you. I mean, I love it when we talk off air or chat online and things like that. But I really, man, I have missed this.
Yeah.
I love you, brother. I tell you what.
This is why I think Gen 11 would be fun. Just like doing a as in the days of Noah, as in the days of Lot, and things like that. These are fun topics that you and I can throw the weird, the wacky, the in between, the common, the arguments, the debates, the details that maybe some of the listeners aren't aware of, so on and so forth.
This is good. This is good.
All right, I'm trying to catch up with the chat, but like it's moving as I'm trying to catch up to it, man. And it's like I'm constantly an hour behind in the chat.
Hey guys,
the 4 horsemen and the entities in heaven, and
if you're going to be on tomorrow night, we're going to have Yah willing, we're going to be talking about the blood covenant on our program on Take on the World tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Miranda and I are going to be on, and we may have a special guest. It's not Ian. But we may have a special guest on.
I had somebody ask me if it was me, and I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't even know what they were talking about. And she asked me under a tag of Sean Griffin's show.
Yeah.
So I thought she was asking if I was going to be there. And I was like, he's never going to want me on the show, like ever, let alone as a mystery guest. So I guarantee you it's not that. Yeah. They're like, oh, no, I was talking about Jeff's show. And I was like, oh, I didn't know he was having a mystery guest. But no, I'm not the mystery guest.
Yeah. So, but y'all willing, we'll see. I mean, gosh, we tried to have this program last Sunday and I had an emergency. And hey, and I do want to say thank you to all the people that prayed for those 2 employees. They are better now. It was a pretty rough situation. And listen, I'm just going to say, without God's intervention, I think one of them may have not made it. So I greatly appreciate and covet all of the prayers. I thank you guys for not asking questions, but I definitely believe in the power of prayer. And I tell you, I had so many messages from people saying, Jeff, we're praying. It was great. So thank you everybody for that. That was really great.
Okay. No, that's good. And that emergency, when you told me it was an emergency and I texted you, I said, dude, I've got questions.
I know.
And then you called me and you told me, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was not expecting the, and I'm not trying to hint or give details or anything. I'm just saying, for those who are listening and prayed, this was when Jeff says emergency, he means it. When Jeff says urgent, Jeff means it. Jeff's not the guy.
I'm not trying to be sensational.
Uses words. Here. Yeah, he means it.
Yeah.
And that was a very uniquely urgent situation.
Yeah. Man, I have flat loved this, guys. If you've enjoyed this tonight, we ask you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video out. There's my grandbaby brought in by this is Cora. Everybody, apparently Jessica thinks it's okay for Cora to be online, so there we go.
Oh, I thought you were gonna make a Cora's Rebellion joke here, and I was like, isn't that spelled differently?
It's spelled differently.
Yeah.
Oh boy, there we go. So, yeah.
Man, I cannot catch up with the chat.
Got the
These people
grandbaby
talk
guys
like we do.
I know, man.
They're all over. It's. I might give up and trying to catch up.
Yeah. All right, there we go. Going back to Mama. Hi, Cora.
The little baby.
Yeah, she's so sweet. Jeez. Photobombing by Cora. There we go. Yeah, that's good stuff. Oh.
The green reminded me of the green handkerchief they use in women mobs. What? I'm confused on that. I don't know what you're... Okay, sure. See, this is what happens when you try to catch up on chat and it's like an hour past. Like, what was I talking about? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah.
We've got a person saying they've been having dreams too.
Well,
I've been noticing that lately, that dreams have been a real pattern in the body for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, Miranda had a very disturbing dream. I think we may have talked about it. I don't know if we talked about it online as far as like in a show, but I think we talked about it.
I think you might have told me a little bit because Well, you already know usually if you have a dream that if you're thinking there's meaning and you're not sure, then that's something to come to talk to me about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think I remember you guys mentioning that, but it was something that was kind of a little bit more easier to understand rather than needing interpretation type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, this headache. I'm not a fan of headaches.
So, brother, y'all willing? You ready to commit to this? I'm going to throw it out there again. We're going to do part 2 of this.
No, I'm not. I'm not committing. We'll do more videos together, and we very well might do part 2 next week or whatever. I'm not committing to anything. I've been bad at doing videos lately, man. It's been like almost 2 months.
Hey, but we got you back on the bike tonight with 3 hours.
You did, brother. You did pull me in, and the people messaging me definitely helped. A couple of people said they were praying for me. That helps big time. And then you bothering me and saying that, you pretty much demand that we start doing videos again helped as well.
Yeah.
Man, every time I scroll and it looks like it's at the bottom of the thing, it extends again. What is this?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah. Chat's been great tonight, guys. I've been trying to keep up with some of it. It's been difficult because we'll get to talking, and I'll look, and the chat that I saw is it's like off the screen. It's not even there anymore. So it's been really good tonight, guys. We have a great audience.
Archaeology in Turkey. That's true. There's been a lot. You had that, and it's funny too because right before the Turkey thing, and I told you this, right? I started hearing Turkey, and I was like, okay, what about Turkey? And then one of the guys at work brought in a turkey he shot that morning. Wow. Right. And then there was constantly Turkey being brought up to where it's just like, okay, this is weird. Right. Yeah. And then you find out about the Mountain of Gold. You find out about the Urartu Empire. Right. That's supposed to be at least 3,400 years old, all kinds of stuff. And the hell Urartu, that's ancient Armenian.
It is.
So that's part of my peoples, So when they talk about Urartu and the battles with Turkey, I things light up for me because it's like, oh, you're saying Armenian but ancient, really is what they're saying. Most people don't know that, but most people don't know much about Armenians either.
Yeah.
I can't find the bottom of this. I can't find the bottom. Can you?
I'm at the bottom, brother. And everybody's saying great show.
Show off.
They've been they've really enjoyed the show. They're all excited to see you, brother. And likewise, I am so glad that you're back on.
Yeah. I'm curious about Jerry's dreams here. Talking about dreams and saying that they continue thereon from the last one. Okay, so like dreams can be the flesh, it can be what you ate, it can be what your fears are, what your thoughts are, it could be the enemy, all kinds of things. And then you have dreams that are from God.
Yeah.
Okay. And I will say this, not saying that it confirms anything or that absolutely states, but when you have dreams that continue, there is a better chance that there is actual significance and it's not the bad pizza you ate the night before. Okay. Right. So that, I've been gifted and utilized in that department enough to know that that's a flag to pay attention to when somebody says that, or when you have dreams that connect like that and continue.
Right.
Repeating dreams are interesting as well, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that there's a significance. But if they're continuing, there's a better chance that there's significance. Okay, I think I finally found the bottom. All right, I'm done, dude. I got a headache. I just wanted to get to the bottom. I wanted to see if there was anything that I needed to acknowledge. But maybe we'll talk Turkey. Maybe we'll do some Genesis 11 stuff. If we do Gen 11, though, I want that to be an actual Gen 11. I want as if what I want matters. But in my mind, I think it'd be nice to do a Gen 11 video that's dedicated to that, whether that's a part 1 and 2 or just 1 or whatever, rather than hodgepodging it like we did tonight. See, I like tonight, though. What in the world? Fun. I like this. I like sitting here and just going over whatever. You get to hit on a bunch of topics. Like I told you, you don't have to go too much into each one.
Yeah. This was nice. And I really enjoyed this. This was fun. So I pray that Jehovah will allow us to continue according to his will, and that he really beats you up and tells you to do this again pretty soon.
Oh, he's constantly not beating me up, but every weekend I've let it go.
Urging you, brother, in the spirit.
It's been the
Prompting
conviction
you.
of like, so what are you gonna do? And I was like, well,
Yeah.
find something else to do other than videos.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this was good. I'd like to get back into the Bible studies too, though. I really enjoy doing that. I miss that. I don't know if we'll get back into the First Samuel or not, but I'd like to get into some deep scripture studies again.
Yeah.
Because that's usually I have two vibes. I have tea talks, and this was more of a tea talk. Tea talks and Bible studies, and I want to start doing some Bible study stuff because I enjoy that. I like really hitting it hard.
Yeah, I told you a couple that we're looking at doing too, so we're excited about.
Yeah,
that.
I know. See, you're trying to hit heavy topics. I like to hit chapters and whatever comes in those. See, it's different vibes. It's not one's better or whatever. You like to do what I used to like to do, and that what you like to do, in my opinion, takes more work. It is a heavier burden because you have to look at all the different views on things, and you have to argue all those different views. When I do a chapter study, I choose based on whether or not I feel led, right? Right. I have a little bit more of a chance to say, you know what, I'll reference this, but just keep moving forward because the point is the whole greater message of the chapter. But you don't get to do that with your topics because your topic is the greater message of that topic. Right. So you have to hit all the points that you possibly can, right?
Yeah, it's not 3 points in a poem.
Right. No, that's heavy stuff, man. So my hat's off to you on that because the topics you've been wanting to hit and the topics you have been hitting, those are not easy. You and your wife are putting yokes on and plowing fields, man. And I've been sitting on the wayside eating watermelon, but it is what it is,
Oh, that's good. That's good, brother. I love you, man. I love you.
That counts for anything.
I love you. Okay. I have sure enjoyed having you. Having been a part of this tonight. It's been fun.
Yeah. Hey, we need to discuss. There's no tick on the world Sukkot and stuff like that. I've got Sukkot plans. My family, we're doing Gatlinburg, Tennessee, second time in a row. We did it last year. And we're doing it again this year. This time we're taking my mom instead of her mom, so it's gonna be a good time. We've got all these different things and stuff. But Feast of Trumpets, bro. Yeah. I have no Feast of Trumpets plans. I did a Shavuot thing, and usually the things that I hit is a Shavuot, a Feast of Trumpets, and a Sukkot and Passover. And we did the Passover. I had a Shavuot thing. I don't know what you guys did. But Yom Kippur, Atonement Day, my wife and I in the household and stuff, we don't go anywhere. We don't do gatherings for that. Yeah. So our only one for this year really is trumpets, man. So I was thinking it'd be nice. Yeah, willing. It'd be nice to do something, to gather something for a day, Yeah.
I'm down, brother.
Oak Ridge, Tennessee, right down the street from Gatlinburg. Nice. Yeah, we're going to be hitting Gatlinburg. I love Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We're going to be there for like a week. And we went last year. I love Tennessee. I love Kentucky. I love that area. I love we do a lot in mountain hiking. My daughter is not even 7 years old and she's got miles. And I do mean miles of mountain climbing. I mean, we're talking hiking and mountain hiking. We're talking Carolinas, South and North Carolina. We're talking Colorado. We're talking Ohio, lots of miles in Ohio. We're talking Tennessee. We're talking Kentucky. So that's awesome. We're gonna be hitting the Smokies, man.
It's awesome.
But all right, well, I'm gonna let you go, man. But I want you to start thinking about Feast of Trumpets because it'd be nice. It'd be nice, dude, to do something.
Yeah, maybe we can have you guys.
I wasn't given dates.
Maybe we can have you guys come up. We talked about that. I could barbecue for you, brother. Come on. Nothing says Feast of Trumpets like barbecue.
I don't mind you barbecuing for me. I really don't. I don't hate this plan at all, Jeff. I don't think I'll fight the idea of someone making me food and feeding me. That's not something that I tend to fight. Karen and the whole Idaho. Karen, how far away is Idaho? It's like forever away, isn't it? For one day. Yeah. I would love to hang out with Karen. It was one of the best things about taking the world this last year. Karen, hanging out with Karen and Karina and Gert.
Karen has so much inspired knowledge. And
dude, I'm telling you, should jump in her study sometime.
I'd like to get her on our show.
Well, talk to her about it. She likes to talk. She likes to talk all. Hey Jeff, Watch Karen laugh at me right now. You want to get her on the show? There's 2 topics that if you tell her that she can rant about for like 10 minutes straight, uninterrupted, she'll come on.
Oh yeah, you have to message me what those 2 topics are, and I'll bait her with them.
Just tell her. Just say, Karen, I'd love to have you come on and talk about ravens or daughters, or ravens. Just say one of those words, Jeff, and then watch her. Just
trigger words right there. Trigger words.
She'll have 500 pages.
There she goes.
Sum it down. See, told you, ravens.
There we go. Ravens. There we go.
Higher. All right, but yeah, I'd love to do a shofar trumpet blowing. I don't know if you've got a trumpet. You said you played trumpet. You got a trumpet?
I've got a trumpet. I've got a shofar, brother. We're ready to roll.
I've got like 7, 8 shofars. So if we were to have people, or if it's just you or whoever, I've got shofars to play with. You've seen them, haven't you?
Yeah. Oh, you have a nice. Oh, you let me blow your nice one.
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually let people if they want to, you know.
Yeah, man, that was great.
Samson wants to hang out. Hey, let me know, man. You know, he's had some stuff. He was hosting that Shavuot that we were trying to go to, and I was real bummed we didn't get to do that. But
oh yeah.
All right, man. I'm gonna let you go. I'm tired for real.
All right, brother.
I'm hurting, but I'm glad you joined me tonight. I'm glad you pushed for it and stuff like that. And until next time.
All right, brother. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Hi, guys. Thank you for everybody tuning in, too. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then blowing up the chat to where it takes me 2 hours to scroll through it. My goodness. These people talk like we do, Jeff. I'm telling you.
I love it, man. We have the best audience.
They are something. All right. Much love. May bless you and keep you according to his will as he sees fit. May he bring you into alignment if you're not in alignment, and keep you in alignment if you are. May he show you where you need growth and progression, and give you conviction with grace and mercy and truth as he sees fit in your life, in your family's life, in your friend's life, your co-worker's life. May his love and light shine through you as he sees fit to everybody you come across, and allow you to receive understanding, the instruction of understanding, the instruction of wisdom and knowledge, all through his design and his will for his purpose for your life, according to the glory of him in the kingdom as he sees fit. So be it. That's going to be my what I hope for the listener, and what I pray for the listener. All right. Shalom, shalom. Good night.
Hi, guys.
Yeah. He's alive. It's really just that simple, man. Draw nigh to God, man. Yeah. Draw nigh to God. He will draw nigh unto you. Draw nigh to God. He will draw nigh unto you.